Welcome to the audiobook, The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. If you enjoy audiobooks about power, strategy, self-development, and success, please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content like this. Let's dive into this powerful and timeless book. Introduction. Power shapes our lives in ways we often don't realize. It influences our relationships, our work, our opportunities, and even the way we see ourselves. Some people are naturally aware of the power dynamics around them. They seem to know how to gain respect, how to persuade, how to rise through challenges with ease. Others struggle, feeling overlooked, misunderstood, or stuck. The truth is, power is not magic, and it's not something only a few are born with. Power is a set of principles, patterns, and behaviors that anyone can learn to understand and apply. That's what this book is about. Taking the lessons of the 48 laws of power and breaking them down in simple, practical language so you can see how they work in real life, and how you can use them to build the kind of influence that helps you succeed without losing your integrity. When I first encountered the ideas behind these laws, I felt a mix of fascination and discomfort. On one hand, they revealed so much about the hidden rules that shape our interactions, the things people do to protect themselves, to win, to rise. On the other hand, some of the laws felt cold or manipulative. I wondered, is this really how the world works? Do I have to follow these rules to succeed? What I've come to understand is that power, like any tool, can be used for good or for harm. What matters is not just what you learn, but how you choose to apply it. This book is not about turning you into someone who deceives or controls. It's about helping you see the forces at play around you, so you can protect yourself, build healthy influence, and achieve your goals with clarity and strength. Why does learning about power matter? Because whether we like it or not, we all navigate power every day. At work, we deal with bosses, colleagues, and clients, each with their own ambitions, fears, and expectations. In relationships, we balance give and take, closeness and independence. In communities, we seek to contribute, to lead, to be heard. Power is not just about ruling over others. It's about knowing how to stand your ground, how to inspire trust, how to make decisions that help you and those around you thrive. The better you understand power, the more choice you have in how you move through the world. This book will guide you through the 48 laws of power in a way that is clear, relatable, and practical. Each chapter will focus on one law, explain what it means, why it matters, and how you might see it play out in everyday life. We'll look at examples from history, business, and personal experience to see how these laws apply. And at the end of each chapter, you'll be encouraged to reflect, not just on how to use the law, but on how to apply it with wisdom and respect for others. Because true power isn't about domination. It's about building the kind of influence that lasts and lifts you, and those around you, higher. One of the most important lessons I've learned in studying power is that awareness is everything. Many of us go through life focused on what we want to say or do, without noticing how others are reacting, what unspoken rules are shaping the situation, or how our actions affect the bigger picture. But when you start to see these patterns, you gain freedom. You gain the ability to act with purpose, to avoid unnecessary conflict, and to create opportunities where others see none. That's what the 48 laws offer, a map for navigating the complex landscape of human interaction. I want to be clear. This book is not about teaching you to manipulate, deceive, or harm. The original 48 Laws of Power contains examples that show both wise and ruthless uses of power. My goal is to help you see these laws for what they are, tools that can be used in many ways. I encourage you to use them thoughtfully, with integrity, and in ways that align with your values. Power without ethics may bring short-term wins, but it rarely leads to lasting success or peace of mind. Power used wisely can help you build respect, achieve your goals, and create positive change. You may wonder, do I really need to think about power? If you want to grow, protect what you've built, and make a difference, the answer is yes. Power is not just for politicians, CEOs, or public figures. It's for parents guiding their children, employees managing their careers, friends supporting one another, and community members working to make life better. Understanding power helps you set boundaries, negotiate effectively, inspire confidence, and stand strong in the face of challenges. It gives you the tools to handle difficult people, to spot hidden agendas, and to lead with clarity. As you read, I invite you to reflect on your own experiences. Where have you seen these laws at play? Where have you used them, perhaps without realizing it? Where have others used them on you? And how can you apply what you learn in ways that are honest, kind, and effective? Remember, this is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming a stronger, wiser version of yourself. In the chapters ahead, we will explore each law one by one. You'll see how people gain power, how they lose it, and how they protect it. You'll learn strategies for dealing with those who try to manipulate or undermine you. And you'll gain insight into how to build influence that serves not just your ambitions, but your deeper purpose. The path to power is not always easy, but it is always worth understanding. Let's begin this journey together and see how mastering these laws, with clarity, care, and courage, can help you shape a life of greater strength, respect, and success. Chapter 1: The Power of Perception. Never outshine the master. One of the first and most important lessons in understanding power is recognizing how people see you and how that shapes your relationships, opportunities, and success. In every situation, whether at work, in your community, or even among friends, there are people who hold more influence than you in that moment. They may be your boss, a mentor, a senior colleague, or simply someone whose approval and support you need to move forward. The rule, never outshine the master, is about understanding that dynamic. It teaches us that no matter how talented, brilliant, or capable you are, if you make someone who holds power over you feel insecure or threatened, you put yourself at risk. Power is not just about what you can do, it's about how you are perceived by others, and how well you navigate those perceptions. When I first learned this lesson, I didn't understand its importance. I believed that the best way to succeed was to always do my best, show my talents, and stand out as much as possible. And while that drive helped me in many ways, it also created friction I didn't see coming. I remember a time early in my career when I was eager to prove myself. I came up with solutions that worked, I spoke up with confidence, and I pushed hard to show that I could add value. But instead of earning support, I began to notice that my boss grew distant. Opportunities that once came my way were given to others. It took time, and the guidance of a wise mentor, to see what was happening. My efforts to shine were making my boss feel overshadowed. Instead of seeing me as an ally, he began to see me as competition. The idea behind never outshine the master isn't about holding yourself back or hiding your skills. It's about being smart in how you present them. When you make someone above you look good, they see you as an asset. When you make them feel threatened or outdone, they may respond with subtle resistance or even open opposition. This law is about understanding human nature. People with power want to feel secure in their position. They want to feel respected. When you support that feeling, you create allies. When you challenge it, even without meaning to, you create tension. This doesn't mean you should downplay your abilities. Instead, it means you should learn to highlight them in ways that strengthen your relationships with those who hold influence. Let your strengths reflect well on them. Share credit generously. Ask for their input and guidance, even when you know the answer. Help them shine, and in doing so, you position yourself as someone they want to support and promote. I learned that by being thoughtful in this way, I gained more opportunities and trust than I ever did by trying to stand out on my own. Another part of this law is learning to read the room. Not every leader or person in power will react the same way. Some are secure in themselves and welcome bright, capable people around them. Others feel insecure and guard their position fiercely. Paying attention to how people respond to you, their tone, their body language, the opportunities they offer or withhold, can give you clues about how best to navigate the dynamic. I found that when I took time to observe and adjust my approach, I built stronger, more positive relationships. Humility plays a key role here. When you approach situations with respect for those who have more experience, authority, or influence, you show emotional intelligence. You signal that you are there to contribute, not to compete. This doesn't mean you never challenge ideas or share your insights. It means you do so in ways that are constructive, collaborative, and mindful of how your words and actions might be received. It's also important to remember that perception isn't always fair. Sometimes, no matter how careful you are, someone may feel threatened by your abilities. In those cases, this law reminds us to be strategic. You may need to adjust how much you share, where you direct your energy, or how you present your successes. Focus on building allies and creating value in ways that don't put you in direct conflict with those above you. In the end, never outshine the master is about awareness, respect, and strategic communication. It's about understanding that power dynamics shape every environment, and that by working with those dynamics rather than against them, you can build influence, achieve your goals, and create lasting success. When you lift others up, you often rise with them. And when you master the art of perception, you gain a power that goes far beyond talent alone. Chapter 2: The Strength of Mystery. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Trust is at the heart of every relationship, whether in business, friendship, or any other part of life. We often believe that those closest to us, our friends, are the safest people to rely on. We think they will protect us, support us, and celebrate our success. But the truth is more complex. One of the hardest lessons I learned on my journey is that friends are human, just like anyone else. They have their own hopes, fears, and insecurities. And sometimes, without meaning to, they can let us down or even harm us. This is why the law, never put too much trust in friends, learn how to use enemies, exists. It's not about seeing the world with suspicion or turning cold. It's about understanding that loyalty doesn't always come from where you expect, and sometimes, those you once saw as opponents can become your strongest allies. Friends often start out with good intentions. They care about you, they want to see you succeed, and they enjoy your company. But as circumstances change, so can feelings. When success comes your way, friends may feel left behind. When you rise in power or influence, they may feel threatened, jealous, or unsure of their place in your life. I experienced this myself. There was a time when a friend I had grown up with seemed like my greatest supporter. But as I advanced in my career, cracks appeared. Compliments became backhanded. Support turned to subtle criticism. It was painful to see. I realized that I had trusted this person simply because of our history, not because they had proven they could handle my growth. This is the risk of putting too much trust in friends without paying attention to how the relationship evolves. This doesn't mean you should shut friends out or view every friendship with suspicion. Instead, it means you should be thoughtful about the roles people play in your journey. Trust should be earned and maintained through actions, not assumed because of the past. Pay attention to how people respond to your wins and your struggles. Do they lift you up, or do they pull away? Do they celebrate your success, or do they compete with it? When you choose who to rely on, look at patterns, not promises. On the flip side, this law teaches us to see enemies, or at least former rivals, in a new light. People who have opposed you, challenged you, or even worked against you in the past often have valuable qualities, drive, strength, and clarity about their goals. When you can turn an enemy into an ally, you often gain someone who will work hard to prove their loyalty. Why? Because they know the cost of mistrust. They know what it's like to be on the outside, and they may value the chance to show their worth. I learned that some of my most reliable collaborators were people I once saw as competitors. When we found common ground, our shared history gave our partnership strength. Using enemies doesn't mean manipulating or deceiving them. It means recognizing opportunities to build bridges where walls once stood. It means looking beyond old battles and asking, what can we build together now? This approach requires humility, courage, and vision. It asks you to let go of grudges and to see the potential in people, not just their past actions. And when you do, you may find that former enemies bring fresh perspectives, new skills, and fierce loyalty born from the effort it took to earn your trust. There's another hidden power in this law, the strength of mystery. When you don't rely too heavily on friends or reveal all your plans to those closest to you, you keep people guessing. This protects you from betrayal, but it also gives you flexibility. When others don't know exactly what you'll do next, they can't easily undermine or block your path. I found that by holding back just a little, by sharing enough to build connection but not so much that I became predictable, I gained freedom to act with more confidence and strategy. In the end, never put too much trust in friends, learn how to use enemies, is about being wise in how you build alliances. It teaches us to see people clearly, to value actions over words, and to stay open to new partnerships, even with those we once saw as threats. When you balance trust with awareness, loyalty with reflection, and openness with mystery, you gain a kind of power that helps you thrive, no matter who you're working with. Chapter 3: Guarding Your Intentions. Conceal your purpose in the game of power. Clarity in your own mind is essential, but clarity to everyone else about your plans and intentions can be a weakness. One of the most powerful lessons I learned is that when others know exactly what you are aiming for, they can block you, compete with you, or use your plans against you. That's why this law, conceal your purpose, is so valuable. It teaches us to protect our goals and ideas until the right moment. This is not about being dishonest or secretive in a harmful way. It's about being strategic, thoughtful, and careful in how much of your path you reveal. When people don't know your next move, they can't stand in your way, and you gain time and space to shape your success on your terms. When I first started in my career, I believed that openness would always earn trust. I thought that by sharing my plans, my dreams, and my strategies with others, I would gain their support and encouragement. And sometimes I did. But too often, I found that the more people knew about what I was trying to achieve, the more they tried to insert their own opinions, doubts, or agendas. Some offered advice that confused me. Others, consciously or not, tried to slow me down or redirect me toward what served their goals, not mine. I realized that my openness was giving away power that I needed to stay focused, confident, and in control of my journey. Concealing your purpose doesn't mean being cold or shutting people out. It means sharing thoughtfully. It means knowing when to speak and when to listen. It means offering enough of your vision to inspire or engage others, without revealing so much that you lose flexibility. I learned to speak in broad strokes. I'm exploring a few options right now. Or, I'm working toward a new opportunity I'm excited about. These kinds of statements keep doors open without locking me into details that others could challenge or interfere with. Another benefit of concealing your purpose is that it creates a sense of mystery. People are naturally curious. When they can't quite figure out what you're aiming for, they often pay closer attention. This gives you a subtle form of influence. They may start watching your actions more closely, seeking clues, or even aligning with you because they sense you are someone with vision and direction, even if they don't know exactly where you're headed. I found that when I stopped explaining every move, people began to respect my decisions more, not less. Holding your intentions close also protects you from unnecessary opposition. The more people know, the more they may feel the need to weigh in, push back, or compete. But when your plans are known only to you or to a trusted few, you can move quietly and confidently, adjusting as needed without pressure or interference. This gives you an advantage. You can gather information, test ideas, and build strength before revealing your full purpose. Of course, concealing your purpose requires balance. You don't want to be so guarded that you seem distant or untrusting. The key is to engage with warmth and openness in spirit, while being thoughtful about what you reveal. Share values, enthusiasm, and connection. These build relationships. But share your specific strategies and goals only with those who have earned your trust and whose interests align with your own. One powerful technique I learned is to use decoys, small statements or actions that satisfy curiosity without giving away your true aim. For example, if people press you about your next steps, you might talk about a smaller goal or a side project, keeping your larger purpose protected until you are ready to reveal it. This approach keeps conversations positive, while safeguarding your deeper intentions. In the end, concealing your purpose is about control, not of others, but of your own path. It's about keeping your power where it belongs, with you. When you protect your plans, you give yourself the freedom to act with clarity, to adapt without explanation, and to achieve your goals without unnecessary resistance. And when the time is right, you can reveal your purpose with confidence, knowing that you have built the strength and strategy to see it through. Chapter 4. Say less than necessary. Let silence speak. Words are powerful. They can inspire, persuade, and connect us to others. But they can also weaken us when used without care. One of the most valuable lessons in the pursuit of power is learning that sometimes, less is more. When you say too much, you reveal more than you need to. You may expose your thoughts, your plans, or your emotions in ways that others can use against you. You may talk yourself into trouble, create confusion, or reduce the impact of your message. That's why this law, say less than necessary, is so important. It reminds us that silence, or restraint in speech, can be one of our greatest tools. When you choose your words carefully and speak with intention, you gain control of how others see you and how much influence you have in any situation. I remember a time early in my career when I felt that talking more would prove my value. In meetings, I would jump in to share ideas, explain my thinking in detail, and tried to show that I had considered every angle. But what I didn't realize was that in doing so, I often weakened my position. By talking too much, I gave people more to question, more to challenge, and more to pick apart. I lost the power of focus. I saw that those who spoke less, but chose their words with care, often carried more weight. When they spoke, people listened. Their words had impact because they were rare and thoughtful. Saying less than necessary creates space for mystery. When you don't explain every thought or plan, you leave room for others to wonder, to reflect, and to respect your presence. People tend to fill silence with their own assumptions, and often those assumptions are more favorable or respectful than anything you might have said. I learned that when I kept my words few, others often imagined I was wiser, more confident, or more strategic than I felt. The silence became a kind of strength. Another advantage of saying less is that it gives you time to listen. When you're not focused on filling the air with words, you can observe more. You can notice what others are saying, what they're not saying, and how they react. This information is powerful. It helps you understand what people value, what they fear, and how best to respond. I found that when I focused on listening first and speaking second, my contributions became more relevant, and my influence grew. Saying less also helps you avoid unnecessary mistakes. The more you speak, the greater the chance that something you say will be misunderstood, challenged, or regretted. In difficult conversations, in negotiations, or in moments of tension, silence gives you time to think. It keeps you from reacting emotionally or saying something that might damage trust or opportunity. I learned that in heated discussions, the person who stays calm and speaks little often holds the upper hand. They appear more in control, more thoughtful, and more capable of leading the conversation to a positive outcome. There is also an elegance in simplicity. When you can express your point clearly in a few words, people respect you more. Long explanations often dilute the message. But a brief, well-chosen statement can inspire action, build confidence, and leave a lasting impression. I began to practice this in my emails, presentations, and everyday conversations. I asked myself, what is the core of what I want to say? How can I say it simply and with impact? The results were powerful. My words began to carry more meaning, and my listeners paid closer attention. This law does not mean you should stay silent at all times. It means you should be intentional. There are moments when speaking up, sharing ideas, and offering support are important and valuable. The key is to do so with care, to ensure that your words serve a purpose rather than simply filling space. It's about speaking to connect, not to impress, to contribute, not to dominate. In the end, saying less than necessary is a practice in self-discipline and strength. It teaches you to trust that you don't need to prove yourself with endless words. Your presence, your actions, and your carefully chosen speech can say far more. And in that restraint lies a quiet but powerful influence, one that helps you navigate challenges, build respect, and achieve your goals with clarity and grace. Chapter 5. Build your reputation, your greatest asset in the world of power and influence. Few things matter more than your reputation. It follows you wherever you go, shapes how people see you, and opens, or closes, the doors to opportunity. A good reputation is like a shield. It protects you from harm, earns you respect, and gives your words and actions greater weight. A damaged reputation, on the other hand, can take years to repair and can hold you back in ways you may not even see at first. That's why this law, build your reputation, your greatest asset, is so important. It reminds us that while talent, hard work, and ambition are all vital, none of them will take you far without the foundation of a strong, positive reputation. When I started my journey, I didn't think much about reputation. I focused on doing my job, learning my craft, and achieving my goals. I assumed that if I worked hard and did good work, people would naturally see me in a positive light. But over time, I learned that reputation doesn't just build itself. It's shaped by every interaction, every choice, and every impression you leave behind. It's not just about what you believe about yourself, it's about what others come to believe about you. And if you don't actively protect and strengthen your reputation, you leave it vulnerable to misunderstanding, gossip, or attack. Building a strong reputation starts with consistency. People trust what they can count on. When you act with integrity, keep your promises, and treat others with respect again and again, you show the world who you are. You create a pattern that people can rely on. I learned that small actions matter as much as big ones. Being on time, being kind, doing what you say you will do, these build your reputation day by day. And when challenges come, that foundation helps people see your true character, even when things go wrong. Another key to a powerful reputation is owning your mistakes. No one is perfect. We all slip up, make errors, or have moments we wish we could take back. But what sets strong reputations apart is how people handle those moments. I found that when I acknowledged my mistakes openly, apologized sincerely, and worked to make things right, people respected me more, not less. They saw that I was honest, accountable, and willing to learn. Trying to cover up mistakes or blame others only weakens your reputation over time. Your reputation is also shaped by the company you keep. The people you associate with reflect on you. When you align yourself with those who are respected, positive, and driven by good values, that light shines on you as well. But if you stay close to those who are known for dishonesty, selfishness, or harm, you risk being seen in the same way. I learned to be thoughtful about my connections, not out of judgment, but out of understanding that reputation is not just personal, it's collective. Defending your reputation is just as important as building it. There may be times when others try to harm your good name, through jealousy, misunderstanding, or malice. In those moments, it's tempting to fight back with anger or to spread counter-gossip. But I found that the best defense is to stay true to your values and let your consistent actions speak louder than any rumor. When you continue to act with integrity, over time, the truth becomes clear, and false attacks lose their power. A strong reputation also allows you to influence without effort. When people trust you, they listen to you. When they respect you, they want to work with you. When they admire you, they give you the benefit of the doubt. I saw this in action as my career grew. Because I had worked to build a reputation for fairness, competence, and kindness, people came to me for advice, for partnerships, and for opportunities. My reputation opened doors that my words alone could not. In the end, your reputation is one of your most valuable assets because it represents who you are in the world. It shapes your opportunities, your relationships, and your legacy. Building and protecting it takes time, effort, and care, but the rewards are lasting. When you guard your reputation as your greatest asset, you give yourself the foundation for a life of influence, respect, and true power. Chapter 6. Protect your authority. Court attention at all costs in any environment where power and influence matter. Being invisible is not an option. If people don't notice you, they can't support you, follow you, or be inspired by you. If your voice goes unheard, your ideas lose their chance to shape outcomes. That's why this law, court attention at all costs, is so important. It teaches us that attention is not just something nice to have. It is a form of power. When you stay visible, when you draw attention in thoughtful, strategic ways, you protect your authority and ensure that your presence is felt. This doesn't mean seeking attention for its own sake. It means recognizing that without attention, even the best work, the strongest ideas, and the kindest intentions can be overlooked. I learned this lesson through experience. Early on, I believed that if I worked hard and let my results speak for themselves, that would be enough. But I noticed that others, people no smarter or more skilled than I was, advanced more quickly. They received opportunities, recognition, and support that I didn't. The difference wasn't their talent, it was their visibility. They made sure people noticed their contributions. They spoke up in meetings, shared their achievements, and positioned themselves where their efforts could be seen. That's when I realized that power often goes not to those who work the hardest, but to those who are seen working hard. Courting attention requires balance. It's not about showing off or making noise without purpose. It's about ensuring that your presence, your work, and your contributions are visible in ways that build respect and authority. This can mean sharing your successes in a humble, meaningful way. For example, instead of saying, "Look how great I am," you might highlight a team win and your role in it. "I'm proud of what we achieved together, and I'm grateful for the chance to contribute." People notice. They see your leadership without feeling pushed away by arrogance. Another way to court attention is through your ideas. Speak up when you have something valuable to say. Don't wait for the perfect moment, because that moment may never come. I found that when I began to share my thoughts more often, people started to see me as a thinker, a contributor, and a leader. Even when my ideas weren't perfect, the act of engaging built my presence and influence. Visual presence matters, too. The way you carry yourself, your posture, your eye contact, your energy, draws attention. People are drawn to those who appear confident and engaged. I learned that simple things, like standing tall, looking people in the eye, and moving with purpose, helped me command attention without saying a word. These small choices signal strength, focus, and authority. Innovation is another powerful way to court attention. When you bring something new, creative, or bold to the table, people notice. They are drawn to fresh ideas, to those who think beyond the usual. This doesn't mean taking risks just to stand out, but it does mean looking for ways to add unique value. I saw that when I challenged myself to think differently or to offer solutions no one else had considered, I earned attention for the right reasons. But remember, attention is only power when you protect it. Letting yourself fade into the background, assuming people will remember your contributions without reminders, or failing to maintain the visibility you've built, all of these can erode your authority over time. I learned that staying visible is an ongoing effort. It means continuing to engage, to contribute, and to show up fully in every setting that matters. Finally, use attention wisely. The goal is not to seek the spotlight for ego or applause. The goal is to ensure that your work, your values, and your vision are seen and respected. Attention is a tool. When you court it thoughtfully, you can guide it toward what truly matters, building influence that lifts you up and helps others rise with you. Chapter 7. Control through action. Get others to do the work, take the credit in the world of power. One of the smartest ways to rise is to achieve great results without having to do all the work yourself. This isn't about being lazy or taking advantage of people unfairly. It's about understanding how to lead, how to delegate, and how to harness the strengths of others to build something bigger than you could create alone. The law, "Get others to do the work, take the credit," reminds us that power often comes not from doing everything yourself, but from guiding others to contribute toward your goals while making sure your role is recognized. When used wisely and ethically, this principle helps you build influence, create success, and protect your energy for the work that matters most. I learned this lesson over time. In the early part of my career, I believed that doing everything myself was the best way to prove my worth. I stayed late, took on extra tasks, and tried to handle every detail personally. But what I found was that this approach left me exhausted and limited my impact. No matter how hard I worked, there was only so much I could do alone. Meanwhile, I watched as others who were better at leading teams, inspiring collaboration, and sharing responsibility advanced more quickly and achieved bigger successes. I realized that true power comes not from doing it all, but from knowing how to bring out the best in others and guide their efforts toward a shared goal. One way to apply this law is through smart delegation. Delegation isn't just about handing off tasks you don't want to do. It's about trusting the right people with the right responsibilities and supporting them in doing their best work. When you delegate effectively, you free yourself to focus on strategy, vision, and leadership. You also create opportunities for others to grow, which builds loyalty and strengthens your team. I learned that by choosing people carefully, giving clear direction, and then stepping back to let them shine, I could achieve far more than by trying to control every detail myself. Another part of this law is about shaping the narrative. When you guide a team, support a project, or drive a success, it's important that your contribution is visible. This doesn't mean taking credit for work you didn't do. It means making sure that your role as a leader or key contributor is clear. Share the wins in ways that highlight both the team's effort and your guidance. For example, "I'm proud of what we accomplished together." Shows that you led while giving credit where it's due. I found that when I was thoughtful in how I communicated about successes, people saw me as both a leader and a team player. Using this law wisely also means understanding that you don't have to be the expert in everything. Some of the most powerful people I've met are those who surround themselves with others who have strengths they don't. They know how to ask for input, listen to advice, and incorporate ideas from a variety of sources. They guide and shape the work, but they don't try to be the smartest person in the room on every topic. This humility not only makes you stronger, it earns respect and creates a network of support that helps you achieve your goals. There's a caution in this law, too. If taken too far, if applied without fairness or integrity, it can create resentment. People don't mind working hard for a leader who values their effort and shares success. But if they feel used or unappreciated, trust erodes. That's why it's important to balance this principle with kindness and transparency. Acknowledge contributions, lift others up alongside you, and make sure that the credit you take is for the leadership and vision you provided, not the work you simply claimed. In the end, getting others to do the work while taking the credit is about leadership. It's about creating environments where people want to contribute, where their efforts build something meaningful, and where your guidance helps shape success. It's about recognizing that power is not in doing everything yourself, but in knowing how to inspire, direct, and celebrate the collective effort that brings big dreams to life. Chapter 8. Make people come to you. Use bait if necessary. One of the most powerful positions you can hold in any situation is that of the one who controls the terms of engagement. When you chase after people, whether for approval, opportunities, or answers, you give away your power. You put yourself at the mercy of their decisions, their timing, and their terms. But when you can make others come to you, you reverse that dynamic. You become the one who sets the pace, shapes the discussion, and holds the advantage. That's what this law teaches. Make people come to you, and if needed, use bait that draws them in. This isn't about manipulation for harm. It's about creating situations where others seek you out because of the value, vision, or opportunity you represent. I learned this lesson through trial and error. Early in my journey, I often felt I needed to push hard to gain attention, approval, or success. I reached out constantly, followed up too often, and tried to force results. Sometimes this worked, but often it left me feeling frustrated and powerless. People responded on their own schedule, or not at all. I realized that in chasing after what I wanted, I was showing too much need, and that need weakened my position. That's when I started to shift my approach. Instead of pushing outward, I focused on creating value that drew people in. I made myself, my work, and my ideas so compelling that others came to me. One of the keys to making people come to you is to offer something they want or need. This is the bait the law refers to, not trickery, but genuine value. Maybe it's a unique skill, a solution to a problem, or a vision for the future that excites them. Maybe it's the stability and trust you provide. Whatever it is, when you have something others desire, you don't have to chase them. They will come to you because they see the benefit in doing so. I found that when I focused on building expertise, delivering consistent results, and offering clear direction, people naturally sought my input, my support, and my partnership. Another way to apply this law is through patience. When you make the first move too quickly, you risk showing your hand or losing leverage. But when you wait, when you let others approach you, you create space for curiosity, respect, and eagerness to build. I practice this in negotiations, in team dynamics, and even in social situations. Instead of rushing to fill silence or push for agreement, I learn to hold back, to let the other side come forward, and to respond with strength once they did. This law also teaches the value of positioning. Where you stand, figuratively and literally, matters. Put yourself in places where opportunity will find you. Align yourself with projects, people, and ideas that attract attention and respect. When you are associated with what is valuable and important, people will come to you because they want to be part of that success. I learned that by choosing where I invested my time and energy wisely, I could draw people in without chasing after them. Of course, making people come to you is not about arrogance or passivity. It's about confidence and strategy. It's about knowing your worth, creating value, and trusting that when you build something strong, people will want to be part of it. There will be times when you must reach out first, but even then, the goal is to create conditions where others feel drawn to engage, to say yes, to follow your lead. Using bait wisely means understanding what motivates the people you want to engage. It means offering something real, something that meets their needs, solves their problems, or excites their ambitions. It means thinking about their perspective and creating a win-win situation that makes coming to you the obvious choice. I found that when I focused on creating these kinds of opportunities, the right people came forward, and the relationships that followed were stronger and more productive. In the end, making people come to you is about power through attraction rather than force. It's about creating a position of strength by offering value, showing patience, and trusting in the power of what you bring to the table. When you master this approach, you'll find that you spend less time chasing and more time choosing, and that is one of the greatest forms of power there is. Chapter 9. Win through actions, never through argument. In the pursuit of power, it's easy to believe that the strongest voice wins. Many people think that if they can just present the perfect argument, speak the right words, or outtalk the other side, they will come out ahead. But one of the most important lessons I learned is that arguments rarely lead to true victory. Even if you win a debate, you may create resentment, resistance, or hidden enemies. Words alone often stir emotions rather than change minds. This is why the law, win through actions, never through argument, is so valuable. It teaches us that actions have the power to achieve what words cannot. When you let your deeds speak for you, you gain respect, influence, and lasting results without creating unnecessary conflict. I remember a time when I believed that reason and logic were enough to solve any disagreement. I put great effort into explaining, persuading, and debating. Sometimes I did win the argument, people agreed with my points, or at least stopped pushing back. But what I didn't see at first was the cost. Even when I made a strong case, the person on the other side often felt frustrated, embarrassed, or shut down. I had won the battle of words but lost their trust, goodwill, or cooperation. Over time, I realized that true power doesn't come from proving others wrong. It comes from showing them what works through action. Actions cut through doubt, resistance, and pride. When you take decisive steps and deliver results, you show what is possible without needing to convince with words. People may resist your arguments, but they cannot argue with success they can see and feel. I found that when I stopped trying to talk people into my vision and instead focused on building, creating, and demonstrating, others began to follow. They saw the value of what I was doing and wanted to be part of it, not because I had outtalked them, but because I had shown them something real. Another reason actions are so powerful is that they avoid unnecessary friction. Arguments often trigger ego and defensiveness. Even the most well-meant words can be heard as criticism or challenge. But when you act, when you take a step that moves the goal forward, you bypass those emotional barriers. People see progress, and progress speaks for itself. I learned that by acting instead of arguing, I could turn potential opponents into allies. They saw the benefits of what I was doing and joined in, sometimes without needing any persuasion at all. Winning through actions also builds your reputation as someone who gets things done. People respect those who move beyond talk to achievement. They trust doers more than debaters. Over time, This creates a quiet form of power. You become known as someone who delivers, who creates positive change, who leads through example. That kind of reputation opens doors and earns loyalty in a way that words alone never can. Of course, this doesn't mean you should never explain yourself or share your vision. But it means you should let actions lead the way. Use words to support, not replace, what you do. Speak simply and clearly, then let your work prove the rest. I found that when I spoke less and acted more, my words carried greater weight. People listened because they knew I backed up what I said with results. This law also reminds us to be mindful of when arguments are truly worth having. There are moments when standing up for a principle or clarifying a misunderstanding matters. But even then, pair your words with action. Show your commitment through what you do, not just what you say. Actions ground your words in reality and give them strength that arguments alone can't match. In the end, winning through actions rather than argument is about choosing influence over ego, results over noise, and connection over conflict. When you let your deeds do the talking, you build power that is quiet, steady, and undeniable. And that kind of power not only helps you achieve your goals, it earns the respect and trust that make lasting success possible. Chapter 10. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. Emotional contagion. One of the most surprising lessons in the pursuit of power and success is how deeply the people around you influence your mood, mindset, and outcomes. It's natural to believe that we can stay positive, focused, and strong no matter what. But the truth is, emotions, both good and bad, are contagious. When you spend time with people who are always negative, unlucky, or unhappy, it becomes harder to stay hopeful and driven. Their doubts can plant seeds of worry. Their failures can cast shadows on your dreams. That's why this law, avoid the unhappy and unlucky, is so important. It reminds us to choose our company carefully, because the energy we surround ourselves with shapes the energy we bring to our own lives. I learned this lesson the hard way. There was a period when I worked closely with someone who always seemed to see the dark side of every situation. No matter how promising an opportunity was, they found reasons why it would fail. No matter how much progress we made, they focused on what went wrong. At first, I tried to lift them up. I thought my optimism and determination could balance out their negativity. But over time, I noticed that their view of the world was affecting mine. I hesitated on decisions I once would have made boldly. I started doubting ideas that had excited me. Their constant focus on what could go wrong made it harder for me to see what could go right. This doesn't mean you should turn away from everyone who struggles or is going through hard times. We all have moments of difficulty, and compassion matters. But there is a difference between someone who faces challenges and keeps trying, and someone who lives in a pattern of misery or defeat and spreads it to those around them. This law teaches us to protect our mindset, our energy, and our focus by choosing company that supports and strengthens us, rather than drags us down. The reason emotional contagion is so powerful is that we are wired to connect. We pick up on the moods, fears, and hopes of those around us, often without realizing it. When you are surrounded by people who believe in possibility, who focus on solutions rather than problems, you feel braver, stronger, and more creative. When you are surrounded by those who dwell on failure, blame, or hopelessness, you may find your own confidence slipping. I began to see that guarding my environment wasn't selfish. It was necessary for staying true to my goals and values. Avoiding the unhappy and unlucky doesn't mean judging or looking down on others. It means being wise about where you invest your time and emotional energy. When you see that someone's negativity is persistent and contagious, create distance. Wish them well, but focus on relationships that uplift and inspire. This creates space for growth, progress, and joy. I found that when I shifted my circle to include more people who were positive, resilient, and solution-focused, my own outlook brightened. Challenges felt more manageable, and successes felt more meaningful. Another part of this law is recognizing when you might be the source of negativity in your own life. We all have moments when we focus on what's not working or dwell too long on setbacks. The key is to notice these moments and shift your focus. Surrounding yourself with positive, driven people helps, because their mindset rubs off on you just as surely as negativity does. I learned that by choosing company that reflected the best in me, I became more of that best self. In the end, avoiding the unhappy and unlucky is about creating an environment where you can thrive. It's about protecting your dreams from the weight of doubt and creating a space where hope, effort, and success can grow. When you choose to walk with those who lift you up, you make the journey lighter, brighter, and far more powerful. Chapter 11. Learn to keep people dependent on you in the world of power and influence. True strength comes not just from what you can do, but from how others rely on you. When people see you as essential, when they believe they need you to succeed, to solve problems, or to move forward, you gain a kind of quiet, lasting power that cannot be easily taken away. This is what the law, learn to keep people dependent on you, teaches. It's about making yourself so valuable, so trusted, and so central to the goals of others that they want you in their corner. When people need you, they protect you, support you, and work to keep you close. And when you have that kind of place in their world, you gain the freedom and security to shape your path with confidence. Early in my journey, I thought that success came from independence, by showing I could do everything myself and didn't need help. But what I saw over time is that power grows when you create relationships where your presence, skills, and contributions make others stronger. When they know that without you, their plans would falter or their goals would be harder to reach, they naturally value and defend your role. I learned this through mentors who built teams that relied on their guidance, through colleagues who became the go-to experts in a specific area, and through my own efforts to become someone whose input made a real difference. Keeping people dependent on you is not about manipulation or creating unhealthy reliance. It's about offering something unique that others truly need. This might be a skill that no one else has mastered, a perspective that helps solve difficult problems, or a leadership style that brings out the best in a team. When you focus on what you do best and develop it deeply, you become the person people turn to in critical moments. I found that when I worked to strengthen my unique strengths, rather than trying to do everything, I became more valuable to those around me. Another way to build positive dependence is by being the connector. When you help others find solutions, build relationships, or access resources they couldn't easily reach on their own, they come to see you as a key part of their success. I saw this in action through people who were masters at bringing the right people together at the right time. Their networks, insights, and generosity made them indispensable, and in return, they earned loyalty, gratitude, and influence. Consistency also plays a role. When people can rely on you, when you do what you say you will do, deliver results, and show up when it matters, they come to trust you. That trust is a form of dependence that strengthens your place in their world. I learned that by being steady, reliable, and true to my word, I built relationships where people didn't just want my help, they counted on it. Of course, this law also reminds us to protect the value we create. If you give everything away too easily, or if you make yourself so replaceable that anyone could fill your role, you risk losing the power of your position. It's important to balance generosity with strategy. Share your strengths in ways that build relationships and success, but guard the unique qualities that make you essential. I found that by being thoughtful about what I offered and how I offered it, I could support others while maintaining the influence I had earned. In the end, keeping people dependent on you is about creating value that matters and building relationships where that value is recognized and respected. It's about becoming a source of strength, guidance, or expertise that others rely on, not because you demand it, but because they see and feel its worth. When you master this, you create a form of power that is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted in the trust and success you help create for others. Chapter 12. Use honesty and generosity to disarm power is often associated with strength, control, and strategy. We imagine powerful people as those who speak boldly, act decisively, and always stay one step ahead. But one of the most underestimated tools of power is kindness, true, thoughtful honesty and generosity that take others by surprise and lower their defenses. The law, use honesty and generosity to disarm, reminds us that when you offer something genuine, whether it's a kind word, a helping hand, or a small but meaningful gift, you create a moment of trust that opens doors. you gain the chance to build influence in a way that feels natural and human. When I first came across this idea, I was skeptical. Could something as simple as honesty really be a source of power? But as I watched those around me who were skilled at building alliances and earning respect, I noticed a pattern. They weren't always the loudest in the room or the most forceful in their views. Often they were the ones who took the time to listen, who shared openly when it mattered, and who gave small but thoughtful gestures that made others feel seen and valued. Their generosity wasn't about grand displays, it was about small acts that built trust. Honesty, when used wisely, disarms suspicion. In a world where many people expect hidden motives or strategies behind every move, a sincere statement or a candid admission can come as a relief. It can make people feel safe and more willing to engage. I learned that in tense situations, sharing a genuine thought like, "I'm not sure of the answer, but I'm committed to finding it," or, "I understand your concern, and I want to work through it together," often ease tension and open space for real dialogue. People responded not to perfection, but to the courage of honesty. Generosity has a similar power. A small, unexpected gift, a kind gesture, an offer of help, or a moment of your time, can create a bond that words alone might not achieve. These acts signal that you are not just thinking about yourself. They show that you see and value the other person. I remember a colleague who always made time to share resources, ideas, or connections without expecting immediate return. Over time, their influence grew, not because they demanded it, but because so many people wanted to support them in return. This law is not about using honesty or generosity as tricks. If these acts are not sincere, people will see through them, and the effect will be the opposite of what you want. The key is to mean what you say and to give in ways that feel right to you. True generosity, offered without expectation, often creates opportunities and goodwill that serve you far more than calculated moves ever could. Honesty and generosity also help you recover from mistakes. When you own your errors and make amends with genuine care, people forgive more easily and often respect you more. I found that by addressing missteps directly, apologizing when needed, offering solutions, and showing that I had learned, I built stronger relationships even in difficult times. Another benefit of this approach is that it builds a positive reputation. People remember those who are fair, kind, and open. They talk about those who help them without needing to. And that goodwill spreads, creating a network of support and influence that can't be easily shaken. I saw that when I focused on building trust through honest, generous acts, opportunities came my way that I hadn't even sought out. In the end, using honesty and generosity to disarm is about leading with humanity. It's about choosing connection over control, trust over suspicion, and kindness over fear. These choices create a kind of power that is lasting, because it is built on the strongest foundation there is, respect. When you practice this law, you'll find that people not only listen to you, they want to follow you, support you, and see you succeed. Chapter 13. When asking for help, appeal to self-interest. At some point, we all need help from others, whether it's support for an idea, assistance with a task, or backing for a dream we want to pursue. But one of the most important lessons in the world of influence is that people are far more willing to help when they see how doing so benefits them too. The law, when asking for help, appeal to self-interest, reminds us that the key to gaining support is not just to ask, it's to connect your request to what the other person values, needs, or wants. When people can see their own advantage in helping you, they are not only more likely to say yes, they are more likely to do so with enthusiasm and commitment. I remember early in my journey, I thought the best way to get help was to appeal to kindness, loyalty, or a sense of duty. I'd say things like, "I'd really appreciate your help," or "I'm counting on you." And sometimes that worked. But other times, people hesitated. They were polite, but they didn't commit. I began to see that most people, while willing to help, are naturally focused on their own goals, challenges, and priorities. If my request felt like a burden or didn't connect to what mattered to them, it often fell flat. When I shifted my approach, when I started to think about how my request could serve them as well, the results changed dramatically. Appealing to self-interest doesn't mean being manipulative or selfish. It means taking the time to understand what the other person values and showing how your request aligns with that. Maybe they want recognition, and you can offer them credit or visibility. Maybe they care about efficiency, and your request helps streamline a process they're responsible for. Maybe they want to grow their own skills, and working with you gives them that chance. I learned that when I framed my requests in ways that spoke to these interests, people responded more positively and with greater energy. One way to do this is to ask yourself before reaching out, what's in it for them? This simple question helps you shape your request so it feels like a win-win. For example, instead of saying, I need your help with this project, you might say, your expertise would really strengthen this project, and it's a great opportunity to showcase what we can achieve together. This approach shows respect for the other person's abilities and connects your request to their success. Another way to appeal to self-interest is to offer something in return. People appreciate relationships that feel balanced. When you show that you're willing to support their goals, share resources, or help them when they need it, they are more inclined to say yes when you ask for help. I found that generosity in small ways, sharing insights, offering assistance, or celebrating their wins, built goodwill that made future requests smoother and more welcomed. Timing matters too. When you ask for help, choose moments when the other person is most able and willing to give it. Be aware of their pressures and priorities. If you show that you understand and respect their situation, they are more likely to see you as thoughtful and considerate, and more willing to support you in return. It's also important to be clear and direct about what you need. Vague requests can feel confusing or risky to the other person. But when you're specific about what you need, why it matters, and how it benefits them, you make it easier for them to say yes. I learned that clarity builds confidence and trust, while confusion creates hesitation. Finally, remember that appealing to self-interest is not about tricking people. It's about creating alignment, finding the shared ground where your needs and their interests meet. When you approach help in this way, you build partnerships that are stronger, more positive, and more lasting. People feel good about saying yes because they see the value for themselves as well as for you. In the end, asking for help by appealing to self-interest teaches us to think beyond ourselves. It reminds us to see the world through the eyes of others, to build connections based on shared success, and to create opportunities where everyone benefits. And that, in the world of power, is one of the smartest strategies of all. Chapter 14. Crush your enemy totally. In the world of power, it is tempting to believe that kindness, compromise, or halfway solutions are always the best way forward. Many of us want to avoid conflict, to keep the peace, or to leave room for reconciliation. And often this works. But there are moments when leaving an enemy standing, half defeated or with their power only slightly weakened, creates future trouble. The law, crush your enemy totally, teaches us that when you face a true opponent, one who threatens your position, your safety, or your success, you must remove their ability to harm you completely. Partial victories give enemies time to recover, regroup, and strike back. Total victory, on the other hand, brings security and space to focus on building rather than defending. I struggled with this idea at first. It felt harsh. I wanted to believe that people could change, that we could find common ground, that winning partly was enough. And in many cases it is. But I learned through experience that certain challenges, whether from individuals, groups, or even harmful ideas, must be addressed fully and decisively. I saw situations where people left a rival's influence partly intact, only to face greater challenges later when that rival returned stronger and more determined. It taught me that mercy, when misplaced, can create risk not only for yourself but for those who rely on you. Crushing your enemy totally doesn't mean seeking unnecessary harm. It means understanding when a situation requires you to act with firmness and finality. This could mean ending a toxic relationship without leaving the door open for continued damage. It could mean closing off a harmful opportunity so that it cannot threaten you again. It could mean making decisions that remove the source of conflict or danger so that it no longer has the power to affect you. I found that when I acted decisively in these moments, I created space for peace and progress. The energy I once spent worrying about old threats could now be directed toward building, growing, and leading. This law also teaches us to be clear-eyed about who or what our true enemies are. Not every critic is an enemy. Not every disagreement is a battle. The key is to recognize when a person or force is genuinely working against your well-being or success, and when they are simply offering challenge that can help you grow. I learned to ask myself, is this person opposing me because of personal harm they intend, or because of a difference in vision or method? The first may require total resolution. The second may offer a chance for collaboration or compromise. Another lesson of this law is the importance of finishing what you start. When you take action to protect yourself, your team, or your goals, don't stop halfway. Incomplete solutions leave openings for trouble to return. I saw this in projects where problems were addressed only partly, where the root cause was left untouched. The issue would surface again, often worse than before. Crushing your enemy totally means addressing the heart of the matter so that it cannot rise again to cause harm. At the same time, this law calls for discipline. Crushing an enemy totally is not about anger or revenge. It is about strategy. It is about removing danger with precision and care, not through reckless destruction. When applied wisely, this approach creates stability, security, and space for positive growth. When applied in anger, it can create damage that reaches beyond its target and harms your own position. I learned that the most effective decisions come from a place of clarity, not emotion. In the end, crushing your enemy totally is about protecting what you have built. It is about recognizing when a firm, final step is needed to secure your future and the future of those you lead or care for. It is a reminder that in moments where compromise fails, strength and decisiveness are the path to lasting peace. When you master this law, you gain not only security but the freedom to focus on creating, inspiring, and achieving without the shadow of old threats at your door. Chapter 15. Use absence to increase respect and honor. One of the most subtle but powerful tools in gaining influence is understanding the value of your presence and your absence. We often think that being seen and heard as much as possible is the best way to build respect, trust, and authority. But the law, use absence to increase respect and honor, teaches us something different. It reminds us that when we are always available, always present, or always giving, people may begin to take us for granted. Our presence can lose its impact. But when we learn to step back at the right times, to create space, and to let our absence be felt, we increase our value in the eyes of others. We remind people of what we bring, and we create a sense of appreciation that can strengthen our relationships, our influence, and our power. I learned this lesson through experience. Early on, I thought that the way to prove my worth was to always be there, to say yes to every request, to show up for every meeting, to be constantly engaged and available. And while this helped in some ways, I began to notice something troubling. The more I gave, the more people expected. My contributions became background noise. My presence was no longer seen as a gift or a strength, but as something ordinary. I realized that I needed to change my approach, not by withdrawing completely, but by choosing my moments with care, so that when I was present, it truly mattered. Using absence effectively starts with understanding timing. The goal is not to disappear at random or to create distance without purpose. The goal is to step back in ways that build anticipation, reflection, or appreciation. This might mean taking a break after a major achievement, allowing others to miss your leadership or guidance, and to reflect on what you brought to a project. It might mean limiting how often you speak in a group, so that when you do, your words carry greater weight. I found that by being selective about when I engaged, people paid closer attention, and my contributions stood out. Another way absence increases respect is by creating space for others to rise. When you always fill the room with your ideas, your presence, or your energy, others may hold back. But when you step aside at the right times, you give others a chance to contribute, to grow, and to value the role you usually play. This builds not only their respect for you, but also a stronger team or community around you. I saw that when I gave others room to lead, they appreciated my support even more, and my influence deepened. Absence can also serve as a reset. When relationships become strained, or when your presence has become so common that it's no longer appreciated, Stepping back allows emotions to cool and perspective to return. People have a chance to reflect on what you bring, and often they come to see your value more clearly. I found that in moments of tension, giving space helped heal divides and open the door for stronger connections down the line. But this law comes with a caution: absence must be balanced. Too much distance, or distance at the wrong times, can create confusion, hurt, or a loss of trust. The key is to step back not as a withdrawal, but as a strategy, a way to strengthen bonds, to renew respect, and to let your value shine more brightly. It's about knowing when your presence will have the greatest impact, and when stepping aside will speak louder than words or actions. In the end, using absence to increase respect and honor is about understanding the rhythm of connection. It's about giving generously, but not endlessly, about being present fully, but not constantly. Chapter 16. Keep others in suspense. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. Power often rests not only in what you do, but in how others expect you to act. When people believe they can predict your next move, they feel comfortable. They plan around you, shape their strategies with you in mind, and sometimes take advantage of knowing what you'll do next. But when you keep others guessing, when you cultivate an air of unpredictability, you create a powerful advantage. The law: keep others in suspense, cultivate an air of unpredictability, teaches that uncertainty unsettles, surprises, and gives you control. When people don't know what to expect, they hesitate, they react rather than plan, and they look to you for cues. This gives you the upper hand, often without having to say or do very much at all. I learned this lesson through experience. Early in my career, I thought that being predictable was a virtue. I believed that consistency would earn trust, and in many ways it does. But I also noticed that people started to assume too much about what I would say or do. They planned around my habits, sometimes using that to their advantage in ways that limited my own options. I realized that while trust matters, so does the ability to surprise, to act in ways that keep others attentive, respectful, and unsure of where you might lead next. Unpredictability does not mean being unreliable or erratic. It means choosing moments to act in ways that break expectations, that remind others you are not easy to read or control. This might mean changing your routine, offering a new idea when people expect you to stay silent, or holding back when they expect you to speak. I found that by shifting my patterns thoughtfully, I kept people engaged and attentive. They began to listen more carefully, watch more closely, and take fewer liberties with assumptions about me. One powerful effect of unpredictability is that it creates space for creativity. When others can't predict your next move, they can't easily block or limit your path. You gain freedom to explore new options, to take bold steps, and to lead in ways that surprise and inspire. I learned that unpredictability, when used well, keeps your options open and your opponents off balance. It gives you room to act on your terms, not theirs. Another benefit is that it prevents others from becoming too comfortable in challenging you. When people know exactly what you'll do, they may start to push boundaries, test limits, or take advantage of your patterns. But when they see that you can and will act in unexpected ways, they proceed with more care and respect. I saw this play out in negotiations and partnerships. When I occasionally broke from my usual approach, I gained attention and often achieved better results. The element of surprise reminded others that I was not someone to underestimate. But like all laws of power, this one requires balance. Too much unpredictability can create confusion or mistrust. People need to know that while they can't always predict your moves, they can rely on your principles, your values, and your commitment to fairness. The goal is not to create chaos, but to create a dynamic where your choices matter, where your presence keeps people alert, and where your leadership inspires attention and respect. In the end, cultivating an air of unpredictability is about mastering the rhythm of surprise and consistency. It's about knowing when to break patterns in ways that strengthen your position, protect your path, and inspire others to follow with curiosity rather than assumption. When you practice this law with care, you gain a quiet, lasting power, the kind that keeps others watching, wondering, and ready to engage with the best you have to offer. Chapter 17. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous when we think of protecting ourselves in life. It's natural to imagine putting up walls, emotional, social, or even physical barriers that keep us safe from harm, betrayal, or failure. It can feel comforting to retreat into our own space, to limit who has access to us, and to believe that distance equals security. But one of the most important lessons in the world of power is that isolation rarely makes you stronger. The law: do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. Teaches that while caution has its place, cutting yourself off from people, information, and connection leaves you vulnerable. True safety, influence, and strength come not from hiding, but from staying engaged, aware, and part of the world around you. I experienced this truth firsthand. There was a period when, after facing disappointment and betrayal, I began to pull back. I limited my interactions, avoided new connections, and tried to rely only on myself. For a while, this felt like protection. But soon, I noticed the cost. Opportunities passed me by because I wasn't present to see them. My knowledge of what was happening in my field started to fade because I wasn't part of the conversations. And most of all, I felt lonely, disconnected, and uncertain. The walls I built to protect myself ended up trapping me instead. Staying connected keeps you informed. When you engage with people, you hear ideas, learn about changes, and gain insight into what matters and what's coming next. Isolation, by contrast, cuts off this flow of knowledge. In a fast-moving world, staying informed is a key part of staying powerful. I found that even when I felt wary, reaching out and listening helped me see the bigger picture, spot risks early, and find new paths forward. Connection also builds alliances. No one rises alone. Every success story, every powerful leader, every influential figure stands on a network of relationships that support, challenge, and strengthen them. When you isolate yourself, you lose these allies. You lose the chance to build trust, to create partnerships, and to have people who will stand with you when challenges arise. I learned that by opening myself to new connections, even carefully, even slowly, I gained more strength and security than I ever found behind my own walls. This law also teaches us that isolation breeds weakness in decision-making. When you're alone, you hear only your own thoughts. Without outside input, it's easy to miss blind spots, fall into patterns of fear, or make choices based on incomplete understanding. By staying connected, you open yourself to feedback, to fresh perspectives, and to wisdom that helps guide better decisions. I saw that when I shared my ideas with trusted people, their insights made my plans stronger, not weaker. Of course, this doesn't mean that you should open your doors to everyone without thought. Caution, discernment, and boundaries matter. The key is balance. Stay connected, but stay thoughtful about whom you let close. Build relationships based on mutual respect, shared values, and clear purpose. And remember that strength comes not from walls, but from bridges, connections that allow you to move freely, gather strength, and build a lasting foundation of support. In the end, avoiding the trap of isolation is about choosing courage over fear, connection over distance, and engagement over retreat. It's about understanding that true power lies in relationships, in community, and in the flow of knowledge and support that comes when you stay open to the world. When you master this balance, you create a life of influence, resilience, and lasting success, one that no fortress could ever match. Chapter 18. Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person in life. Power and success often depend not just on what you do, but on how well you understand the people around you. Every person you meet, whether a colleague, a client, a competitor, or a leader, has their own personality, sensitivities, and ways of reacting to challenges or slights. One of the most valuable skills you can develop is learning to see people clearly and to act in ways that respect their nature. The law: know who you're dealing with, do not offend the wrong person, teaches that careless words or actions can create unnecessary enemies, while understanding people's strengths, fears, and limits can help you build allies, avoid conflict, and move forward with strength. Early in my journey, I believed that treating everyone the same was the fairest and best approach. I thought that if I acted with honesty and consistency, that would be enough. But I soon learned that people experience the world through their own unique lens. What one person sees as constructive feedback, another may see as criticism. What one person views as boldness, another may see as disrespect. I made the mistake, at times, of assuming that my good intentions were enough to smooth over these differences. And when tension arose, I realized that understanding people, really seeing who they are and what matters to them, is as important as acting with good purpose. This law teaches that no two people are the same in how they handle challenge, disagreement, or perceived offense. Some people are forgiving by nature, they let go of small slights and focus on the bigger picture. Others hold on to hurt, and may quietly or openly work against you if they feel disrespected. Some people respect strength and directness, others respond better to diplomacy and care. When you take the time to observe, to listen, and to learn how those around you react, you gain the power to navigate relationships with wisdom. Knowing who you're dealing with starts with paying attention. Watch how people interact with others. Notice how they handle praise, feedback, and conflict. Listen not just to what they say, but to how they say it, the tone, the emotion, the body language. Over time, you'll begin to see patterns. You'll see who values loyalty above all else, who is driven by ambition, who is cautious, and who is bold. This knowledge helps you choose your words and actions in ways that build bridges rather than create unnecessary divides. Another part of this law is learning to think before you speak or act in emotionally charged moments. It's easy to react quickly, to let frustration, pride, or impatience guide your response. But power comes from pausing, reflecting, and choosing your next move based on what you know about the person in front of you. I found that when I took a breath, considered the other person's point of view, and responded thoughtfully, I avoided many conflicts that could have grown into bigger challenges. This doesn't mean you should hide your views or always agree with others to keep the peace. It means learning how to express yourself in ways that others can hear and respect. It means knowing when to stand firm and when to seek compromise, when to push forward and when to build consensus. I saw that by aligning my approach with the nature of the people I was working with, I gained more influence and achieved better outcomes. At its heart, this law is about respect. Respect for differences, respect for feelings, and respect for the complexities of human nature. When you act with this kind of understanding, you avoid offending the wrong person, the person who, if hurt or angered, could create obstacles that slow or block your path. And you build stronger, more lasting relationships based on trust and mutual understanding. In the end, knowing who you're dealing with is one of the quietest but most powerful forms of strength. It allows you to move through the world with grace, to turn potential enemies into allies, and to create a path of success that is built not on conflict, but on connection. And that, in the world of power, is a skill that serves you in every situation you face. Chapter 19. Do not commit to anyone in the journey of building power. One of the most tempting traps is feeling the need to choose sides too quickly. We are often taught that loyalty is everything, that to succeed we must firmly align ourselves with one person, one group, or one cause. But the law, do not commit to anyone, offers a different lesson. It reminds us that keeping your independence, your ability to choose freely and to act based on what's best for your goals, is one of the greatest forms of power. When you tie yourself too tightly to someone else's plans, you give up control. But when you stay flexible, you become valuable to many and beholden to none. I learned this lesson through experience. Early on, I believed that showing unwavering loyalty would bring security. I aligned myself closely with a leader I admired, thinking that our shared vision would protect and advance us both. And for a time, it worked. But when circumstances changed, when that leader fell out of favor or made decisions I couldn't support, I found myself trapped. My identity and my opportunities were tied to theirs, and breaking free was harder than I expected. It taught me that true strength comes not from locking yourself into a single alliance, but from keeping your options open. Staying uncommitted doesn't mean being untrustworthy or unreliable. It means being wise. It means building relationships across many groups, listening to different viewpoints, and keeping space to act in ways that best serve your purpose. When you stay free, you can move with the changing winds of power without losing your footing. You can adjust to new realities without having to betray old promises or damage your reputation. I found that by focusing on principles rather than personalities, on my deeper goals rather than on attachment to specific people, I was able to stay true to myself while adapting as needed. Another strength of this law is that it keeps others interested. When people see that you are not firmly tied to a side, they work harder to win your favor. They offer opportunities, seek your input, and value your presence more. Your independence becomes an asset that others want on their team. I noticed that when I stopped rushing to commit and instead focused on contributing where I could add the most value, people respected my choices and sought my involvement with greater enthusiasm. Of course, this law comes with responsibilities. Staying uncommitted should never be an excuse for being disloyal, deceptive, or selfish. It means being honest about where you stand, clear about your values, and thoughtful in your actions. It means seeking collaboration without entanglement, and support without surrendering your freedom. When applied with care, this law allows you to build alliances that are strong but not binding, partnerships that respect your independence while benefiting from your contributions. It's also important to recognize when a deeper commitment truly aligns with your purpose. There will be moments when joining a cause, supporting a person, or standing with a group reflects your values and helps achieve your goals. In these moments, commitment can be powerful and right. The key is that the choice comes from strength, not pressure, from clarity, not fear. In the end, not committing to anyone is about protecting your ability to choose. It's about staying open to possibilities, about building connections without losing yourself, and about leading from a place of freedom rather than obligation. When you master this balance, you gain the kind of power that adapts, endures, and thrives in every season of your journey. Chapter 20. Play a sucker till catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark in the game of power. It's natural to want to show people how smart, capable, and strong you are. We often believe that displaying our intelligence will earn us respect, opportunities, and influence. But sometimes, the greatest strength lies in appearing weaker, less knowledgeable, or less prepared than you really are. The law, play a sucker to catch a sucker, seem dumber than your mark, teaches that by letting others underestimate you, you gain the advantage of surprise. You give them the space to show their true intentions, to lower their guard, and to reveal what they might have hidden had they seen you as a real threat. I first saw the power of this law in action when I worked alongside a colleague who rarely spoke up in meetings. People assumed he had little to offer, that he was just following along without much insight. But in private, I discovered that he was observing everything, people's motivations, strategies, and mistakes. And when the right moment came, he spoke with clarity and precision, offering solutions no one else had seen. Because people underestimated him, they never saw his moves coming. He gained influence quietly, not through loud displays of brilliance, but through careful timing and the element of surprise. Playing the role of the fool, or the sucker, gives you breathing room. When people think they are smarter or more skilled than you, they let down their guard. They reveal more, they talk freely, and they often overreach in their confidence. This gives you information, leverage, and the chance to act when they least expect it. I learned that in negotiations, for example, asking simple questions, showing curiosity, or even admitting uncertainty made others feel secure enough to tip their hand. They shared details they might have guarded more closely if they saw me as a strong competitor from the start. But this law is not about truly being foolish or weak. It's about using humility, patience, and the power of perception to create openings. It means being willing to step back, to listen, and to let others think they hold the upper hand, all while preparing to act with precision when the time is right. I found that this approach often led to better results than trying to dominate a room with knowledge or force. It kept me flexible, gave me insight, and allowed me to move strategically rather than reactively. There is wisdom, too, in knowing when not to play the sucker. This law works best when the goal is to gather information, to avoid unnecessary attention, or to create surprise. In moments when clear leadership is needed, when people look to you for strength and direction, showing your true abilities matters. The key is balance, knowing when to hold back and when to step forward. I learned that by mastering this balance, I could guide situations with greater confidence and effectiveness. Playing a sucker is also about emotional intelligence. People like to feel smart, capable, and in control. When you allow them that feeling, they become more open, more willing to engage, and often more generous in their interactions with you. I found that by making space for others to shine, I could build trust and goodwill, while quietly advancing my own goals. In the end, seeming dumber than your mark is not about deception in the harmful sense, it's about strategy. It's about understanding human nature, creating space for others to reveal themselves, and using that insight to act with clarity and strength. When you master this law, you gain a quiet, lasting form of power, the kind that moves unseen until the moment when it matters most. Chapter 21. Concentrate your forces. One of the biggest challenges in life, especially when aiming for power or success, is learning where to focus your energy. The world is full of opportunities, distractions, and competing demands. It can feel tempting to spread yourself thin, trying to please everyone, chase every idea, or solve every problem. But the law, concentrate your forces, teaches that real strength comes from focus. When you direct your time, energy, and resources toward a single purpose, a clear goal, or a core strength, you achieve far more than when you scatter yourself across too many paths. Power, like light, shines brightest when it is focused. Early in my career, I believed that saying yes to everything was the best way to succeed. I took on extra projects, joined every committee, and tried to be involved in as many things as possible. At first, this made me feel productive and valuable. But soon, I noticed the cost. My efforts were spread so thin that nothing received my full attention. Important tasks were rushed, opportunities slipped away, and my energy drained faster than I could replenish it. I realized that by trying to do everything, I was achieving very little of lasting impact. Concentrating your forces starts with clarity. You must know what truly matters to you, what goal, value, or purpose is worth your focus. When you choose with care, you give yourself permission to say no to what doesn't align. This isn't about being rigid or closed to new ideas. It's about making sure that your actions serve a deeper vision rather than pulling you in 100 directions at once. I found that when I identified my key priorities and devoted myself to them fully, my work became stronger, my results more meaningful, and my sense of purpose clearer. Another benefit of concentrating your forces is that it builds momentum. When your efforts are focused, each small success builds on the one before it. Your energy compounds like interest in a bank account. What once felt like a struggle begins to flow more easily, because you are moving with purpose and power in a single direction. I saw this in projects where I committed fully. The deeper I went, the more I learned, the better I became, and the more others recognized and valued my contributions. This law also teaches the importance of protecting your focus. Distractions come in many forms: urgent requests, new opportunities, or the fear of missing out. It takes discipline to stay true to your chosen path. I learned to ask myself with each new demand, does this serve my core purpose? Will this move me closer to my goal, or pull me away? When I answered honestly, I found it easier to stay on track, and the results spoke for themselves. Concentrating your forces doesn't mean you never adapt or change course. Life is full of shifts and surprises, and sometimes focus means knowing when to pivot. But even in change, the power of concentration remains. It means that when you shift, you do so fully and with intention, bringing all your energy to the new direction rather than dividing yourself between the old and the new. In relationships and partnerships, this law reminds us to invest deeply rather than broadly. A few strong, trusted allies will serve you better than many shallow connections. By focusing your time and care on building meaningful relationships, you create a network of support that is steady, loyal, and lasting. In the end, concentrating your forces is about choosing depth over breadth, quality over quantity, and purpose over distraction. It is about bringing your full strength to what truly matters and trusting that in doing so, you will achieve more, inspire more, and build a legacy that endures. When you master this law, you gain the kind of power that doesn't fade or scatter. It grows, it shines, and it shapes the world around you. Chapter 22. Play the perfect courtier in the pursuit of power and influence. It's easy to believe that the strongest path is to lead boldly, speak loudly, and push your agenda forward with confidence at every turn. But history shows that much of power comes not from being in the spotlight, but from mastering the art of diplomacy, subtlety, and service to those who hold the reins. The law, play the perfect courtier, teaches that the smartest players are those who know how to navigate complex environments, win favor, and rise through the ranks by mastering the social game. A courtier is not weak, they are skilled, patient, and strategic, earning power quietly while others waste energy in open conflict. I first encountered the importance of this law in environments where competition was fierce and authority was clear. I saw how some individuals, eager to impress, spoke too much, tried too hard, or challenged their superiors too openly, and ended up sidelined or dismissed. Meanwhile, others rose steadily, not because they were the loudest or the most brilliant, but because they understood how to serve, how to read the room, and how to make those above them feel secure, respected, and supported. These perfect courtiers built influence over time, becoming trusted advisors, key allies, and eventually, leaders in their own right. Playing the perfect courtier begins with respect. The courtier knows that power flows through relationships, and that showing respect to those who hold authority is not weakness, but wisdom. This means choosing your words carefully, offering support rather than challenge, and understanding that your role is to make the leader look good while advancing your own position quietly. I learned that by focusing on helping those above me succeed, I earned their trust, opened doors to new opportunities, and built alliances that lasted. A perfect courtier is also a master of observation. They listen more than they speak. They notice small shifts in mood, changes in direction, and unspoken needs. This sensitivity allows them to adapt, to stay aligned with the goals of those they serve, and to avoid missteps that others might make by acting too quickly or carelessly. I found that when I took time to observe and understand before acting, I was able to contribute more effectively and strengthen my standing. Another key quality is discretion. The courtier knows how to keep confidences, avoid gossip, and handle sensitive matters with care. When others see that they can trust you with their concerns, secrets, or struggles, your influence grows. I discovered that by practicing discretion, I'd built a reputation as someone safe, someone others could rely on, not just for tasks, but for wisdom and support. Patience is essential in playing the perfect courtier. Power built through diplomacy takes time. The courtier does not rush, demand, or push for immediate rewards. Instead, they invest in relationships, in small wins that add up, and in a steady path upward that is less likely to attract envy or opposition. I saw that those who mastered this patience often achieved greater and more lasting success than those who tried to seize power too quickly. Importantly, playing the perfect courtier does not mean losing yourself or your values. It means understanding the game of power and choosing to play it with skill and care. It means knowing when to step forward and when to step back, when to speak and when to listen, and how to build strength through service rather than force. When done well, this approach creates not only personal success, but also a positive, respectful environment where trust, loyalty, and collaboration thrive. In the end, the perfect courtier rises because they understand that true power often moves quietly, through relationships built on respect, service, and strategic action. They show that influence does not always need to shout, it can whisper, guide, and shape the world from within. When you master this law, you gain a kind of power that is steady, resilient, and deeply rooted in the trust and support of those around you. Chapter 23. Create compelling spectacles in the world of power. People are drawn to what catches the eye and stirs the imagination. A well-chosen word, a thoughtful gesture, or a clever idea can inspire and influence. But nothing captures attention quite like a spectacle, something striking, memorable, and larger than life. The law, create compelling spectacles, teaches us that those who command attention through grand displays often gain an advantage. By shaping what people see, you shape what they think. By creating moments that stand out, you build a reputation that endures and a presence that others can't ignore. I learned this lesson watching leaders who understood how to make their actions visible and unforgettable. They didn't just speak about their vision, they showed it. They didn't just share their plans quietly, they launched them with confidence and flair. Their boldness didn't come from arrogance, but from understanding human nature. People remember what moves them, surprises them, or inspires them. And a well-crafted spectacle does all these things at once. Creating compelling spectacles isn't about empty showmanship. It's about using creativity and strategy to highlight what matters. A great spectacle serves a purpose: to build support, to signal strength, to celebrate success, or to shift perception. I saw this in practice when a colleague transformed a simple product launch into an event that drew media attention, engaged the community, and positioned the company as a leader. The core idea was solid, but it was the spectacle that brought it to life and made it unforgettable. Spectacles work because they appeal to emotion. Facts and logic are important, but they don't always move people to action. A spectacle, on the other hand, speaks to the heart. It creates a shared experience, a memory, a story that people want to repeat. I found that when I created moments that touched people's feelings, whether through celebration, surprise, or symbolism, my message carried further and stuck longer. Another strength of this law is that it helps set the agenda. When you create a spectacle, you define what people talk about, focus on, and remember. You take control of the narrative. Instead of reacting to others, you lead. I discovered that by planning bold, visible steps, whether it was launching a new idea, recognizing a team's achievement, or announcing a change, I could guide attention where it served my goals. But as with all laws of power, balance is key. A spectacle that lacks substance can backfire. People may be drawn in at first, but if they see that there's no real value behind the display, trust erodes. The most powerful spectacles are those that reflect real strength, vision, or achievement. I learned to ask myself, what truth am I highlighting? What purpose does this serve? When the spectacle and the substance align, the impact is lasting. Creating compelling spectacles also calls for understanding your audience. What inspires or excites one group may not move another. A great leader listens, observes, and shapes the spectacle to fit the moment and the people. I found that by tuning into what my audience valued, whether it was tradition, innovation, or community, I could design moments that felt meaningful, not just flashy. In the end, creating compelling spectacles is about using vision and creativity to capture hearts and minds. It's about turning ideas into experiences that people remember, talk about, and act upon. When you master this law, you don't just gain attention, you gain influence that lasts long after the spectacle itself has faded. And that is one of the most powerful tools any leader can have. Chapter 24. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following throughout history. People have longed to believe in something bigger than themselves, a vision, a cause, a leader, or a path that gives life meaning and direction. This desire to believe is powerful, and when understood wisely, it can be a force for building loyalty, community, and influence. The law, play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following, teaches us that by offering a clear purpose, a bold vision, or a set of values people can rally around, you can inspire deep commitment. When people see you as the one who provides clarity in a confusing world, they will follow with energy, trust, and passion. I first saw this law in action when I worked with a leader who transformed an ordinary project into a mission. It wasn't just about reaching business targets or meeting deadlines. He spoke about purpose, about making a difference, about shaping the future, about building something that mattered. People weren't just doing a job, they felt they were part of something meaningful. That sense of belief inspired extra effort, loyalty, and creativity. It turned a group of colleagues into a team bound by shared purpose. Creating this kind of following starts with offering a vision that is clear, bold, and emotionally powerful. People want to feel that what they are part of matters. They want to believe that their work, their choices, and their energies serve a greater goal. I learned that when I took time to define and share a vision that went beyond daily tasks, when I spoke of values, impact, and possibility, others leaned in, listened, and chose to join the journey. Another part of this law is creating rituals, symbols, or language that unite people. A powerful leader understands that shared traditions and language strengthen the sense of belonging. Whether it's a phrase that captures the vision, a symbol that represents the mission, or small acts that remind people of what they stand for together, these tools create connection. I found that even simple gestures, a weekly reflection on wins, a shared goal-setting moment, a meaningful thank you, help turn individual effort into shared commitment. Playing on the need to believe also means being consistent. People look to leaders for stability in a changing world. When your words, actions, and decisions reflect the vision you offer, you build trust. I learned that even in times of uncertainty, when I stayed true to the shared purpose I had spoken of, others felt steady and inspired to stay the course. Consistency turns belief into loyalty. It's important, though, to use this law with care. The goal is not to manipulate or create blind followers. It's to offer real meaning, to inspire genuine belief, and to build communities that do good work together. I found that when I focused on truth, on purpose that I truly believed in myself, the following that grew was strong, positive, and lasting. Misusing belief for personal gain without real purpose risks creating harm, division, or disappointment. This law also reminds us that belief needs nourishment. A vision shared once fades over time. A purpose spoken of only at the start can be forgotten. I learned that leaders who keep the vision alive, through stories, celebrations, and ongoing dialogue, keep their followers engaged and their mission strong. It's about making belief part of the everyday experience, not just an inspiring speech at the beginning. In the end, playing on people's need to believe is about offering light in the fog, hope in the struggle, and purpose in the everyday. It is about leading not just with plans, but with meaning. When you master this law, you don't just build a team, you build a movement, a community, a following that lasts and that helps turn vision into reality. Chapter 25. Do not overplay your hand. There are moments in life and in the pursuit of power when everything seems to be going your way. You've made the right moves, gained influence, won respect, and perhaps even outmaneuvered those who once doubted you. In these moments, it's easy to feel invincible, to believe that every step you take will lead to greater success. But the law, do not overplay your hand, teaches that knowing when to stop, when to pause, and when to protect what you've gained is just as important as knowing how to win. Pushing too far, taking too much, or demanding more than a situation can give often leads to downfall, not victory. I learned this lesson through both personal experience and by observing others. Early in my career, after securing a major win that earned praise and opportunity, I became eager to keep the momentum going. Instead of consolidating the trust and goodwill I had earned, I pressed forward too quickly with new demands and ideas. What I didn't see at the time was that people around me needed time to adjust, to reflect, and to feel secure in the changes already made. My eagerness felt to them like overreach, and some of the support I had gained began to slip away. It taught me the value of timing, patience, and knowing when enough is enough. This law is about recognizing the difference between boldness and greed. Boldness helps you seize opportunities, take smart risks, and lead with confidence. But when boldness turns into overreaching, when you keep pushing even after you've achieved your goal, you invite resistance, envy, or backlash. I saw this in negotiations where one side pushed for more even after securing a fair deal, only to lose what they had gained as trust and goodwill faded. The strongest negotiators, I learned, were those who knew when to accept a win and close the deal. Another lesson of this law is the importance of self-awareness. Overplaying your hand often happens not because of strategy, but because of emotion, pride, excitement, or the rush of success. It's easy to get caught up in the moment, to think that because one move worked, the next one will too. But power comes from staying grounded, from pausing to assess the situation, and from acting not on impulse, but on thoughtful reflection. I found that when I built moments of pause into my decisions, when I asked myself, is this the right time to push forward, or is this the time to hold steady? My choices became wiser and my success more lasting. This law also teaches us to read the room. Power is not just about what you want, it's about what the situation, the people, and the moment will bear. When you pay attention to signals, body language, tone, feedback, you can sense when to stop, when to shift, and when to let others feel secure in what has already been decided. I saw that leaders who mastered this skill build deeper loyalty and respect than those who constantly push for more. In relationships, the same principle applies. When you ask too much, demand too often, or take without giving space, you risk weakening the connection you've worked hard to build. Power in relationships comes from balance, knowing when to speak and when to listen, when to act and when to pause, when to lead and when to follow. I learned that by honoring this balance, I created partnerships that lasted and thrived. In the end, not overplaying your hand is about wisdom, discipline, and the long view. It's about recognizing that true power isn't just about gaining more, it's about holding what you have with care, protecting it, and growing it steadily over time. When you master this law, you gain the kind of strength that endures, not because you took all you could, but because you knew when to stop, when to savor success, and when to prepare for the next opportunity with patience and purpose. Chapter 26. Keep your hands clean in the pursuit of power. Reputation is one of your most valuable assets. People judge not only what you achieve, but how you achieve it. Every action you take, every decision you make, adds to or takes away from the image you project. The law, keep your hands clean, teaches that to maintain influence and respect, you must protect your reputation by avoiding direct involvement in messy or controversial matters. Let others handle the difficult tasks when necessary. Stay above the fray, so your name is associated with success, honor, and integrity, even when tough or unpleasant actions are part of the path to that success. I learned this lesson when I saw how certain leaders handled crises or conflicts. They didn't avoid hard choices, but they managed them through trusted allies, advisors, or systems. When a difficult decision had to be made, or when a necessary but unpopular change had to happen, they ensured it was done carefully, but without their own name or image tied to the harshest parts of the action. As a result, they kept their authority intact. They remained respected, even admired, while still moving forward effectively. Keeping your hands clean starts with planning. When you think ahead, you can often avoid situations where you would have to act in ways that could harm your standing. I found that by building strong teams and systems, I could delegate tasks thoughtfully, ensuring that challenges were addressed while preserving the positive role I aim to play. This isn't about shifting blame or avoiding responsibility. It's about leading wisely, protecting the bigger picture, and making sure that your focus stays on creating value, trust, and progress. Another part of this law is owning only the victories worth celebrating. When something succeeds because of teamwork, support, or good strategy, share credit generously. When a win involves decisions or steps that could be seen as harsh, focus on the positive outcomes rather than the tough processes. I learned that by highlighting success rather than struggle, I reinforced the image of strength, care, and competence that others valued. People remember the results more than the behind-the-scenes details, if you are thoughtful in how you present them. Keeping your hands clean also means knowing when to distance yourself from drama, conflict, or negativity. It's easy to be drawn into gossip, disputes, or blame games, especially in high-pressure environments. But I saw that those who stayed above such distractions, who chose their words carefully, who focused on solutions rather than sides, retained greater influence and earned deeper respect. By staying out of unnecessary battles, you keep your energy for what truly matters: leading, building, and inspiring. Importantly, this law is not about dishonesty or pretending you're perfect. It's about leading with care and protecting your ability to serve, inspire, and succeed. It's about ensuring that the inevitable challenges and hard choices of leadership do not tarnish the values you stand for or the trust you've earned. I found that by being thoughtful in this way, I was able to handle difficulties without losing sight of who I wanted to be. In the end, keeping your hands clean is about seeing the big picture. It's about knowing that your power grows not just from what you achieve, but from the image you build and the trust you maintain. When you master this law, you create a foundation of respect and influence that supports all your future goals, and that stands strong even in the face of challenge. Chapter 27. Play on people's need to believe you as their friend while acting as a spy. Information is one of the greatest sources of power. The more you know about people's thoughts, plans, and intentions, the more you can shape outcomes to your advantage. But gaining this information isn't always about asking direct questions or showing obvious interest. Often, the smartest way to learn what you need is by building trust and letting others open up naturally. The law, play on people's need to believe you as their friend while acting as a spy, teaches that by offering warmth, connection, and support, you encourage people to share. And as they share, you quietly gather the knowledge that helps you move with confidence and strength. When I first came across this idea, I felt uneasy. It sounded deceptive. But over time, I saw that this law isn't about betrayal. It's about listening, observing, and learning with care. It's about recognizing that people want to be understood, want to feel connection, and often reveal their true thoughts when they feel safe. By being that safe space, by being a good listener, a kind colleague, or a supportive partner, you naturally gain insight into what matters to them, what worries them, and what they hope to achieve. This insight helps you navigate relationships with wisdom and clarity. I remember working with a team where tensions ran high over a major decision. Instead of pushing my views or demanding answers, I focused on building conversations. I asked how people felt, what they wanted, what they feared. I listened without judgment. In doing so, I learned far more about the dynamics, the unspoken worries, and the real priorities than I ever could have through formal meetings or reports. This knowledge allowed me to guide the team to a solution that respected all sides and moved us forward. Playing on the need to believe you as a friend means offering genuine connection. It means being kind, curious, and supportive, not as a trick, but as a way to create space where truth emerges. People are often eager to share when they feel seen and valued. I found that by focusing on real relationships, the information I gathered was not only helpful but offered with trust and openness. And because I acted with care, those relationships grew stronger, not weaker, as a result. This law also teaches the value of subtlety. A good spy does not announce their role. In power, this means observing without drawing attention, asking thoughtful questions without pushing, and noticing what others miss. It means reading between the lines, watching body language, listening to tone, and sensing what is left unsaid. I learned that much of what matters most is shared not in formal statements, but in quiet moments and passing comments. When you tune in, you gain an advantage that words alone could never offer. Importantly, this law calls for integrity. The goal is not to misuse what you learn, or to harm those who trust you. It is to guide decisions, shape strategies, and build outcomes that serve your purpose without creating unnecessary conflict. I found that when I used information with care, with respect for those who shared it, and with an eye on positive goals, I built both power and respect. In the end, playing on people's need to believe you as their friend while acting as a spy is about mastering the art of quiet learning. It is about gaining insight not through force, but through connection. And when you do this well, you create a kind of power that is thoughtful, informed, and lasting, a power that helps you lead with wisdom and achieve with strength. Chapter 28. If you need to turn to help, never appear helpless. Everyone, no matter how strong, successful, or independent, will at some point need help from others. Life is complex, and no one can do everything alone. But how you ask for help, and the image you present when you do, can either strengthen your power or weaken it. The law, if you need to turn to help, never appear helpless, teaches that even in moments of need, you should project strength, purpose, and value. When you approach others with confidence, showing how their help serves a shared goal or a worthy cause, they are far more likely to respond with respect and support. But when you seem weak, lost, or desperate, you risk losing influence and making others question your ability to succeed. I learned this truth in my own journey. Early in my career, I faced a major setback that left me uncertain and in need of advice and assistance. At first, I approached others with open vulnerability, hoping that my honesty would inspire empathy. Some responded kindly, but I noticed that over time, a few began to treat me differently, as if I were someone to be pitied rather than partnered with. It felt as if I had lost part of the respect I had worked so hard to earn. That experience taught me that asking for help does not mean showing weakness. It means showing the wisdom to seek support while still standing tall in your purpose. This law reminds us that people are drawn to strength. When you ask for help, frame your request in ways that highlight shared benefit, mutual purpose, or respect for the other person's expertise. Instead of saying, "I don't know what to do," say, "I value your perspective on this challenge and would appreciate your guidance." Instead of appearing lost, show that you are navigating a path thoughtfully and are seeking input to make the best decision. I found that this approach not only brought better advice but also built stronger connections. Another reason to avoid appearing helpless is that power dynamics matter. When you present yourself as someone in control of your choices, even during difficulty, you signal that you are a partner worth supporting. People want to invest in those who seem capable, determined, and focused. I discovered that by sharing my needs in ways that reflected confidence and a plan, I gained support without sacrificing my standing. This law also teaches the value of preparation. Before asking for help, think carefully about what you need, why you need it, and how the other person's involvement will make a positive difference. Present your request with clarity, respect, and thoughtfulness. I found that when I prepared in this way, people were more willing to engage, because they saw that I respected their time, insight, and role. Importantly, this law does not mean hiding your struggles or pretending to have all the answers. It means balancing honesty about your needs with strength in how you present them. It means showing that while you seek help, you are still the author of your own journey. I learned that people respected me more when I showed both humility and confidence, when I acknowledged my challenges but also demonstrated my commitment to finding solutions. In the end, asking for help without appearing helpless is about protecting your power while building connections. It's about showing that strength includes the wisdom to seek support, and that true leaders know how to draw others in without giving up their own authority. When you master this law, you gain not only the help you need but also deeper respect, stronger partnerships, and greater success in all you pursue. Chapter 29. Plan all the way to the end in life. Especially when pursuing power, success, or big goals, it's easy to focus on the excitement of beginnings. We start projects, form partnerships, or launch ideas with energy and hope. But often, we give little thought to how it will all finish. The law, "Plan all the way to the end," teaches us that the most powerful and successful people are those who look beyond the first steps. They think through every phase, every risk, and every possible outcome. They see the final result in their mind before they take the first action. By planning all the way to the end, you avoid surprises, prepare for challenges, and guide your path with clarity and strength. I learned the importance of this law when I took on a project that seemed simple at first. The early stages went well, and I was confident. But I hadn't thought deeply about what success would look like at the end, or how I would handle the final steps. As the project grew more complex, unexpected problems appeared. I scrambled to adjust, but my lack of planning made it harder to steer things back on course. That experience taught me that starting well is not enough. You must see the journey through in your mind, from beginning to end, before you even begin. Planning all the way to the end doesn't mean knowing every detail of how things will unfold. Life is full of surprises. But it does mean thinking about your final goal, the possible obstacles, and the paths that will get you there. It means asking yourself, what does success look like? What could go wrong? What will I do if the unexpected happens? I found that by asking these questions at the start, I made smarter choices along the way. This law also teaches the value of patience and discipline. In our fast-moving world, there's often pressure to act quickly, to seize opportunities without full reflection. But power comes from thoughtful planning, from considering not just what feels good now but what will serve you in the long run. I discovered that by taking time to plan, I avoided costly mistakes and achieved results that were more meaningful and lasting. Another strength of planning to the end is that it helps you stay calm under pressure. When challenges arise, and they always do, you can respond with confidence because you've thought ahead. You're not caught off guard. You have options ready, and you know how to adjust while staying focused on your final goal. I found that this kind of preparation not only made me stronger but also inspired greater trust in those who worked with me. This law also applies to relationships, negotiations, and decisions of all kinds. When you enter into agreements or partnerships, think about where you want them to lead. When you make promises or set expectations, think about how you will fulfill them. When you start something new, think about how you will bring it to a strong and positive close. I learned that those who plan with the end in mind build deeper trust, achieve greater success, and avoid many of the regrets that come from unfinished or poorly finished work. In the end, planning all the way to the end is about vision, wisdom, and responsibility. It's about understanding that true power doesn't come from acting on impulse or chasing every opportunity that appears. It comes from knowing where you want to go, preparing for the journey, and guiding your path with care and purpose. When you master this law, you create a life of achievement that is steady, meaningful, and built to last. Chapter 30. Make your accomplishments seem effortless. There's something deeply attractive about success that appears natural, smooth, and free of struggle. When we see someone achieve great things without showing signs of strain, we admire their talent and are drawn to their confidence. The law, make your accomplishments seem effortless, teaches that part of power lies in how your achievements are perceived. When you reveal too much of the hard work, stress, or complications behind your success, you risk losing some of that admiration. But when you handle challenges quietly and present your victories with grace and ease, you inspire respect, loyalty, and even envy. I learned this lesson when I worked alongside someone who seemed to glide through projects. Deadlines, setbacks, and pressure never seemed to touch him. To the outside world, it looked like everything came easily to him. But because I worked closely with him, I saw the truth. He worked hard, planned carefully, and stayed up late solving problems. The difference was that he didn't show his stress or advertise his effort. He let people see the polished result, not the struggle behind it. And because of that, he gained a reputation as someone brilliant, capable, and calm under pressure. Making your accomplishments seem effortless doesn't mean you don't work hard. It means you choose what to reveal and what to keep private. You put in the effort behind the scenes, and when you present your work, you do so with confidence and ease. I found that when I focused on solving problems quietly and celebrating wins gracefully, people paid more attention to the results than to the difficulties along the way. They remembered the success, not the stress. This law teaches the value of emotional control. When you show frustration, panic, or exhaustion, you let others see that the challenge is getting to you. This can create doubt, invite criticism, or even give rivals an opening to question your strength. But when you stay composed, when you face difficulty with calm determination, you signal power. I learned that by taking time to breathe, reflect, and act with care, I could handle even tough situations in ways that inspired confidence. Another benefit of seeming effortless is that it builds mystery. People admire what they don't fully understand. When your achievements look smooth, they wonder how you do it. They are more likely to respect your skill, seek your advice, and follow your lead. I saw that by focusing on delivering polished results, rather than sharing every detail of the struggle, I built a reputation that opened doors and created new opportunities. Of course, this law calls for balance. It doesn't mean pretending that life is perfect or that challenges don't exist. It means knowing when to share your struggles, for connection or teaching, and when to protect the image of ease that strengthens your influence. I found that sharing small, thoughtful glimpses of the hard work behind success could build trust, as long as the main message remained one of confidence and competence. In the end, making your accomplishments seem effortless is about mastering both the work itself and how it is seen. It is about achieving with care, presenting with grace, and understanding that perception shapes power. When you follow this law, you create a kind of strength that draws people in, earns respect, and builds success that lasts far beyond the moment of victory. Chapter 31. Control the options. Get others to play with the cards you deal. One of the greatest sources of power is the ability to shape the choices others believe they have. When people think they are making decisions freely, but those decisions fall within the boundaries you've set, you gain influence without force or argument. The law, control the options, get others to play with the cards you deal, teaches that by guiding what people see as possible, you can steer situations toward outcomes that serve your purpose while allowing others to feel they are in control. This approach creates less resistance, builds goodwill, and helps you achieve your goals with subtlety and strength. I first saw this law at work when negotiating a partnership. Rather than presenting an open-ended discussion where anything could happen, I offered two carefully crafted options. Both served the shared goal, but also supported my deeper aims. Because my partner felt they had a meaningful choice, they engaged openly, and the agreement came together smoothly. What they didn't see was that I had shaped the path so that either option would work well for both of us, but especially for the vision I had in mind. Controlling the options starts with preparation. Before you present choices, you must know what outcomes will serve you best. You must understand what the other person values and how to frame the options in ways that speak to those values. I learned that when I took the time to think through the possibilities, I could guide decisions without pressure or conflict. People felt heard, respected, and empowered, and I stayed in control of the direction things moved. Another strength of this law is that it reduces risk. When you shape the field of options, you limit the chance that decisions will veer off in directions that harm your purpose. You protect your goals while still offering flexibility that builds collaboration. I found that by guiding choices, I could avoid unnecessary surprises and keep projects, partnerships, and plans on track. This law also teaches the value of subtlety. The best guidance is often invisible. When people feel forced, they resist. But when they feel they are choosing freely, they commit more fully to the decision. I saw that when I presented options thoughtfully, without pushing or over-explaining, people often chose the path that served us both best, and did so with confidence and enthusiasm. Importantly, controlling the options requires integrity. The goal is not to trap or trick, but to create win-win situations where your needs and theirs align. When you use this law with care, you build relationships based on trust, not manipulation. I learned that by focusing on outcomes that respected both sides, I strengthened my influence and built partnerships that lasted. This law applies in small, everyday ways as well. In conversations, in problem-solving, in leading teams, you can shape choices that keep things moving in positive directions. By offering options that reflect your goals while respecting others' needs, you create a path forward that feels shared rather than imposed. In the end, controlling the options is about leadership through guidance, not force. It's about shaping the field so that the choices people make serve the greater good while protecting what matters to you. When you master this law, you create power that feels natural, cooperative, and lasting, a power that helps you lead with wisdom and achieve with purpose. Chapter 32. Play two people's fantasies. People don't live by facts and logic alone. While we often like to think of ourselves as practical and grounded, much of what moves us, excites us, and inspires us comes from our dreams, hopes, and fantasies. We all long for stories that lift us beyond the ordinary, that promise something greater, or that fill a gap in our reality. The law, play to people's fantasies, teaches that by tapping into these dreams, you can capture attention, build loyalty, and inspire action in ways that facts and reason cannot. When you understand what people wish for most deeply, you gain the power to lead, to influence, and to shape the world around you. I learned this lesson when working on a project that aimed to inspire a team during a difficult time. The facts were clear, the challenges were real, and solutions required hard work and patience. But simply presenting the facts didn't motivate or unite people. What did was sharing a vision of what could be, a story of success, of making a difference, of achieving something meaningful together. When people connected with that vision, when they saw themselves as part of something bigger and brighter than the struggle, their energy changed. They leaned in, committed more, and worked not just for the facts of the task, but for the dream we shared. Playing to fantasies means understanding what people long for. Some dream of security, of a world where they feel safe and valued. Others dream of adventure, of bold change, of being part of something new and exciting. Still others long for recognition, for meaning, or for belonging. When you listen, observe, and engage with care, you begin to see these dreams. And when you speak to them, not with empty promises, but with visions that honor their hopes, you build connection and influence. This law teaches that people want to believe in magic, in the possibility of transformation, in the hope of something better. When you play only to facts, you speak to the mind. When you play to fantasies, you speak to the heart. And it is the heart that moves people to act with passion, loyalty, and courage. I found that by weaving dreams into my plans, by showing not just what was necessary, but what was possible, I inspired stronger, more lasting commitment. Of course, this law must be used with care. The goal is not to mislead or manipulate, but to inspire and uplift. A fantasy that leads people to harm, disappointment, or betrayal erodes trust and weakens your power. But a fantasy that helps people see a brighter future and motivates real progress strengthens both your influence and their lives. I learned that the most powerful leaders are those who offer dreams that can be built, not just imagined. Playing to fantasies also means offering hope during times of uncertainty. When the path is difficult, people look for a light to follow. When you provide that light, when you offer a vision that guides, comforts, or excites, you become a source of strength. I saw this in teams, communities, and partnerships. Those who offered hope, who painted a picture of success, were the ones others turned to, trusted, and followed. In the end, playing to people's fantasies is about seeing the world not just as it is, but as it could be. It is about offering visions that lift, stories that inspire, and paths that lead to something greater. When you master this law, you gain a kind of power that touches both the heart and the mind, a power that helps you lead with purpose and achieve with grace. Chapter 33. Discover each man's THUMBSCREW. At the heart of power is the ability to influence people, to guide their choices, to shape their actions, and to align their interests with your goals. But to influence someone effectively, you must first understand what moves them most deeply. The law, discover each man's thumbscrew, teaches that every person has a pressure point, a weakness, a need, a fear, or a desire that drives them. When you identify this, you gain the ability to inspire, persuade, or negotiate with far greater skill. This is not about cruelty or exploitation. It is about understanding human nature and using that understanding to build connections, solve problems, and achieve shared goals. I first saw the power of this law in action during a negotiation. My colleague, rather than pushing hard with logic or argument, spent time listening and observing. He noticed what the other party valued most, not money or status, but recognition for their ideas. When he framed his proposal in terms of highlighting the other person's vision and giving them credit, the deal came together quickly. By discovering the thumbscrew, the key motivator, he turned potential resistance into enthusiastic support. Discovering someone's thumbscrew starts with paying attention. People often reveal their true drivers not in what they say directly, but in what they emphasize, what excites them, or what worries them. Listen for repeated themes. Do they talk about respect, security, ambition, belonging? Watch how they react in different situations. What makes them light up? What makes them withdraw or defend? I learned that by tuning in carefully, I could see what mattered most to people, and then frame my approach in ways that honored those truths. This law also teaches the importance of empathy. To understand what moves someone, you must see the world through their eyes. What seems small to you may be deeply meaningful to them. What you see as a strength, they may see as a vulnerability. By practicing empathy, by imagining their hopes, fears, and values, you gain insight that facts alone can't provide. I found that this kind of understanding helped me build stronger relationships, because people felt seen and respected. Another strength of this law is that it helps you avoid unnecessary conflict. When you know what people truly care about, you can offer solutions that meet their needs while serving your goals. You can find common ground more easily, because you're not guessing at what matters, you know. I saw this in partnerships where focusing on shared values or key motivators helped overcome obstacles that logic or compromise alone couldn't resolve. Importantly, discovering someone's thumbscrew comes with responsibility. The goal is not to harm, manipulate, or exploit, but to guide wisely. When you use this understanding to lift others up, to create win-win outcomes, and to build trust, you strengthen your power in ways that last. I learned that when people saw that I used what I knew about them to support, not to control, their loyalty and respect deepened. In the end, discovering each man's thumbscrew is about becoming a student of human nature. It is about seeing beyond surface actions to the deeper needs that drive people. When you master this law, you gain the ability to lead with insight, to influence with care, and to build connections that stand the test of time. Chapter 34. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king. Be treated like one. How you present yourself shapes how others see you, and ultimately, how they treat you. If you carry yourself with confidence, self-respect, and dignity, people are more likely to respect you in return. The law. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king. To be treated like one teaches that power begins with self-perception. When you believe in your own worth and show it through your words, actions, and presence, others will follow that lead. They will value your time, listen to your ideas, and look to you as someone who matters. But when you doubt yourself, downplay your abilities, or act small, people will reflect that back. They will overlook you, underestimate you, or take you for granted. I learned this lesson through experience. There was a time when I held back in meetings, spoke softly about my ideas, and waited for permission to lead. I thought that humility would earn me respect. But instead, I noticed that others often spoke over me, overlooked my contributions, or took credit for my work. When I began to change my approach, when I spoke with clarity, shared my views confidently, and carried myself with self-assurance, the way people responded changed too. They listened more closely, asked for my opinion, and saw me as a leader. Acting like a king in your own fashion doesn't mean arrogance or pretending to be something you're not. It means recognizing your strengths, honoring your value, and presenting yourself with the poise that invites respect. This starts with how you see yourself. If you see yourself as worthy of respect, you will naturally act in ways that command it. I found that small choices, how I entered a room, how I shook hands, how I spoke, made a big difference in how others perceived me. This law teaches that people take their cues from you. If you act like someone who deserves to be treated well, they will often rise to meet that standard. If you let them treat you poorly, they will continue to do so. I saw this in relationships, in teams, and in negotiations. When I set clear expectations for how I wanted to be treated, through my actions, not just my words, I created environments where respect flowed naturally. Being royal in your own fashion also means staying true to yourself. Every king or queen has their own style, their own way of leading, inspiring, and building influence. You don't have to copy others to earn respect. In fact, the most powerful people I've known were those who embraced their uniqueness. They acted with authenticity, and that made their confidence real and lasting. I learned that when I acted in ways that reflected my true values and strengths, I felt stronger and others trusted me more. Another lesson of this law is that self-respect is visible. People notice when you honor your time, your boundaries, and your commitments. When you show that you value yourself, they are more likely to value you too. I found that by saying no when needed, by standing firm on what mattered, and by keeping my promises to myself as well as to others, I built a reputation that invited respect. In the end, acting like a king to be treated like one is about owning your worth. It is about understanding that power begins within and that the world often reflects back what you project. When you master this law, you create a presence that inspires, a voice that carries weight, and a path that others want to follow. And that is one of the quietest, strongest forms of power there is. Chapter 35. Master the art of timing in the pursuit of power, success, and influence. It's not just what you do that matters, it's when you do it. The law. Master the art of timing teaches that every action, no matter how smart or well-planned, depends on the right moment to have its full effect. Acting too soon can mean pushing forward when others aren't ready to listen, support, or follow. Acting too late can mean missing the window of opportunity altogether. But when you learn to sense the perfect moment, when preparation meets opportunity, you act with strength, grace, and impact that leaves a lasting mark. I learned this lesson through both wins and mistakes. Early in my journey, I was eager to share new ideas and push for change. But sometimes my timing was off. I proposed a plan when people were distracted by other issues, or I launched a project before the team was ready to support it. The ideas were good, but because I moved at the wrong moment, they didn't succeed. On the other hand, when I waited, when I watched, listened, and acted at the right time, the same ideas found fertile ground and took root. Mastering timing starts with patience. In a world that often values speed and urgency, it can feel hard to wait. But power comes from knowing that not every moment is the right one to act. By watching the flow of events, by listening to the mood of the room or the readiness of your audience, you learn to sense when to move forward and when to hold back. I found that when I practiced patience, I was able to seize opportunities that others missed because they rushed or hesitated. Another key to mastering timing is preparation. The right moment rarely announces itself with a fanfare. It comes to those who are ready. By staying focused, by refining your skills, by having your plan in place, you ensure that when the window opens, even briefly, you can step through it with confidence. I saw that the people who seemed lucky were often those who had prepared quietly, so when the time came, they made the most of it. This law also teaches that timing is about rhythm. Every situation has its own pace. Some call for quick action, while others unfold slowly. When you align your actions with the natural rhythm of events, you create harmony and ease. When you push against the flow, you create resistance and struggle. I learned to pay attention to this rhythm, whether in conversations, in negotiations, or in big decisions. By matching my pace to the moment, I built trust, influence, and success. Mastering timing means learning from the past but living in the present. You reflect on what has worked before, but you stay alert to the unique qualities of now. No two moments are the same, and what worked once may not work again in the same way. I found that flexibility was key. The best plans are those that can adjust to the changing landscape, so that when the right time comes, you are ready to act, not on autopilot, but with fresh insight and strength. In the end, mastering the art of timing is about blending preparation, patience, and presence. It is about knowing that the power of an action comes not only from its quality but from its moment. When you master this law, you move through life with greater ease, greater impact, and greater success, not because you do more, but because you act at the moments that matter most. Chapter 36. Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge in the journey toward power and success. There will always be things just out of reach, goals missed, opportunities lost, or objects desired but unattainable. The natural response to these moments is often frustration, envy, or even obsession. We focus on what we couldn't get, and in doing so, we give it power over us. But the law, disdain things you cannot have, ignoring them is the best revenge, teaches a wiser path. When you let go of what you can have and act as if it does not matter, you regain control of your emotions, protect your dignity, and show the world that your strength lies not in what you possess, but in what does not possess you. I learned this lesson when I pursued a partnership that, despite my best efforts, fell through at the last moment. At first, I felt disappointed and fixated on what I had lost. I replayed conversations, questioned my decisions, and let the setback consume my energy. But as I stepped back, I saw that this focus wasn't helping. The more I dwelled on it, the more I signaled to others that I was weakened by the loss. When I shifted my attention to new opportunities, when I acted as if the missed partnership no longer mattered, I not only felt stronger, but others saw me as resilient and forward-looking. Disdaining what you cannot have is not about pretending you never wanted it. It's about choosing where to place your energy and focus. When you ignore what's beyond your reach, you free yourself to pursue what is possible. I found that by turning my attention to new ideas, new relationships, and new paths, I created fresh success that mattered far more than what I had lost. This law also teaches the power of emotional control. People watch how you respond to setbacks. When you show bitterness, envy, or desperation, they see someone who is ruled by what they lack. But when you show grace, calm, and confidence, even in loss, they see someone strong. I learned that in both personal and professional settings, those who carried themselves with dignity after disappointment gained respect and trust that outlasted the moment. Another strength of this law is that it helps protect your reputation. When you ignore what you can have, you avoid actions that might damage your standing, such as complaining, blaming, or lashing out. You show that your value doesn't depend on any single prize or opportunity. I saw that by moving forward with focus and purpose, I built a narrative of strength that opened new doors even when others had closed. Importantly, disdaining what you cannot have helps you see the bigger picture. What feels like a loss today may, in time, reveal itself as a blessing. I found that some of the things I once longed for would have limited me or led me down paths that didn't serve my greater purpose. By letting go gracefully, I left space for better opportunities to appear. In the end, ignoring what you cannot have is about freedom. It is about choosing not to be defined by what you lack, but by what you pursue, create, and achieve. When you master this law, you gain a kind of power that no loss can take away, the power of self-respect, focus, and a future built on strength rather than regret. Chapter 37. Create alternative realities. Stir up waters to catch fish. In the world of power, clarity can be both a gift and a danger. When everything is clear and calm, people feel safe, but they also become more aware, cautious, and harder to influence. The law, stir up waters to catch fish, teaches that creating a bit of confusion or uncertainty can help you guide situations to your advantage. By shifting people's focus, by creating a sense of movement or change, you open the door to new possibilities that you control. This is not about creating chaos for its own sake, but about using well-placed disturbance to make people look to you for guidance, answers, or solutions. I learned this lesson while working through a negotiation that had stalled. Both sides were locked in their positions, and no progress was being made. Rather than trying to push the same points harder, I changed the conversation. I introduced a new question, a fresh idea, a different way of looking at the situation. This shift unsettled the stuck pattern just enough to open new paths. People began to engage again, and we found a solution that had seemed impossible before. By stirring the waters, I was able to catch the fish. Creating alternative realities means understanding that people often fall into routines of thinking and acting. When you gently disturb these routines, through a new idea, a surprising question, or an unexpected move, you create space for change. I found that in teams, communities, and even in personal relationships, well-timed shifts in direction or focus could break unhelpful patterns and invite new energy and solutions. This law teaches that power comes from being the one who shapes the narrative. When others are caught in confusion or uncertainty, they look for someone to lead. If you can provide clarity, vision, or a way forward, you gain influence. I learned that by creating movement, by stirring the waters just enough to break stagnation, I positioned myself as the one people turned to when they felt lost. Another benefit of this law is that it keeps others from becoming too comfortable or confident in their assumptions about you. When people believe they have you figured out, they may try to predict or control your actions. But when you introduce surprise, when you act in ways that break their expectations, you protect your freedom and keep the upper hand. I saw that by staying thoughtful but unpredictable, I made it harder for others to box me in. Importantly, stirring up waters must be done with care. Too much disturbance creates distrust or harm. The goal is to create just enough shift to open new paths, not to create unnecessary damage or confusion. I found that by focusing on positive change, on breaking patterns that held people back, I could use this law in ways that built trust rather than eroded it. In the end, stirring up waters to catch fish is about knowing when and how to create movement that serves a greater purpose. It is about understanding that sometimes, progress requires a shake-up. When you master this law, you gain the power to guide others through uncertainty, to lead in moments of change, and to turn shifting tides into opportunities that strengthen both you and those you serve. Chapter 38. Think as you like but behave like others. In every society, workplace, or community, there are unspoken rules, ways of behaving, speaking, and presenting yourself that help you fit in. These rules create a sense of order and belonging, and people feel comforted when those around them follow them. But beneath the surface, each of us carries our own thoughts, beliefs, and dreams. The law, think as you like but behave like others, teaches that true power often comes from knowing how to protect your inner freedom while respecting the outer forms that help you blend in. When you do this, you stay safe from unnecessary attention, criticism, or conflict, while keeping your mind clear and independent. I learned this lesson through moments when I spoke too openly about ideas that were ahead of their time or different from what people were ready to hear. Instead of inspiring others, I sometimes created resistance or confusion. I saw that the more I challenged people's comfort zones openly, the more they clung to what they knew. But when I learned to present my thoughts carefully, when I respected the forms and traditions people valued, I gained space to think freely and act wisely. Thinking as you like means keeping your mind open, curious, and true to your deepest beliefs. It means exploring new ideas, questioning assumptions, and seeing possibilities that others might miss. But behaving like others means honoring the customs, expectations, and rhythms of the group. It means dressing, speaking, and acting in ways that don't draw unnecessary attention to your differences. I found that by mastering this balance, I gained the trust of those around me while keeping my own vision clear. This law teaches the power of discretion. Not every thought needs to be shared. Not every belief needs to be argued in public. By choosing your moments and your words carefully, you protect your relationships, your influence, and your ability to make change from within. I saw that those who spoke their minds too freely, without care for timing or audience, often created barriers that blocked their own progress. Behaving like others also helps you gather information. When people feel you are one of them, they share more openly. They let down their guard. You gain insight into their hopes, fears, and plans, insight that helps you act with wisdom. I learned that by blending in where it mattered, I built connections that allowed me to see the full picture before I chose my next move. Importantly, this law does not mean abandoning your values or living dishonestly. It means being strategic about how and when you share your true self. It means knowing that sometimes the best way to lead change is quietly, from within the group, rather than loudly, from outside it. I found that when I respected people's need for familiarity, they were more open to new ideas over time. In the end, thinking as you like but behaving like others is about protecting your power. It is about staying true to yourself while moving wisely in the world. When you master this law, you gain the freedom to dream, to plan, and to lead, without creating resistance that slows your path. You create space for your ideas to grow, not by standing apart, but by standing within, where your strength can shine at the right time. Chapter 39. Stir up emotions while keeping yours in check. Emotions are one of the most powerful forces in human life. They move people to act, unite them in common cause, or turn them against each other. The law, stir up emotions while keeping yours in check, teaches that when you understand and guide the emotions of others, you gain influence. But when you let your own emotions drive your actions, you risk losing control, making mistakes, and weakening your power. True strength comes from being able to inspire passion in others while staying steady within yourself. I learned this lesson in moments of both success and failure. In one case, during a tense negotiation, I noticed how quickly the other side reacted to strong words or bold promises. When I spoke with conviction and touched on their hopes and fears, I saw them shift their positions, eager to find common ground. But when I let frustration or impatience slip into my own voice, I lost that advantage. They sensed my loss of control and began to push back harder. From this, I realized that stirring emotions in others can help you guide a situation, but only if you stay calm inside. Stirring emotions doesn't mean manipulating people in a harmful way. It means understanding what matters to them, what inspires them, what worries them, what moves them. When you speak to these feelings with care, you help people see a vision, take action, or overcome fear. I found that in teams, in partnerships, and even in friendships, the ability to inspire hope, courage, or excitement made all the difference in creating positive change. At the same time, keeping your own emotions in check means practicing self-awareness. It means noticing when anger, fear, or pride is pushing you to act too quickly or unwisely. I learned that when I paused to reflect before speaking or deciding, I made stronger choices. I also built greater trust, because people could see that I acted with thoughtfulness rather than impulse. This law also teaches the power of patience. When you stay calm while others are caught up in emotion, you gain the ability to see the bigger picture. You can guide the situation rather than be swept along by it. I found that by keeping my focus steady, I could offer clarity when others felt confused or overwhelmed. This not only helped me achieve my goals, but also made me someone others wanted to follow. Importantly, stirring emotions must be done with respect. The goal is to lift people up, not tear them down. When you use this power to create positive energy, whether by sharing a vision, offering encouragement, or standing strong in hard times, you build lasting influence. I saw that those who inspired others with kindness and hope gained more loyalty than those who tried to control through fear or anger. In the end, stirring up emotions while keeping yours in check is about balance. It is about using the energy of feeling to create movement and change, while staying grounded in your own inner strength. When you master this law, you gain the ability to lead with both heart and mind, a combination that builds power that lasts and makes a positive difference in the lives of others. Chapter 40. Despise the free lunch. There's a saying that nothing in life is truly free. Behind every gift or offer with no price tag, there's often an expectation, a hidden cost, or a trap. The law, despise the free lunch, teaches that real power and security come from paying your own way and being self-reliant. When you accept something for nothing, you may find yourself owing more than you bargained for. But when you choose to invest in yourself, your goals, and your success, you build strength that no one can take away, and you protect your freedom to act on your own terms. I learned this lesson early in my career. There was a time when I was offered support that seemed generous, a chance to join a project without contributing resources, a promise of rewards without effort. It felt tempting. But as things moved forward, I realized that the price came later. The giver expected loyalty, control, and decisions that served their interests, not mine. I felt trapped, because by accepting the free lunch, I had given up some of my independence. That experience taught me that paying my own way, even when it's harder at first, gives me the power to choose my path freely. Despising the free lunch means valuing effort. When you work for what you achieve, you appreciate it more. You understand its worth, and you protect it carefully. I found that when I invested my own time, resources, or energy into a goal, I stayed more focused and committed. Success tasted sweeter, and challenges felt like part of the journey, not unfair burdens. The habit of earning what I gained built confidence that no gift could provide. This law also teaches that those who give without asking for anything in return may still expect something, whether gratitude, influence, or control. When you rely too much on handouts, favors, or charity, you open yourself to subtle forms of obligation. I saw that by staying self-reliant, I avoided situations where I felt pressured to repay kindness in ways that didn't align with my values or purpose. Despising the free lunch is also about setting an example. When you show that you are willing to invest in yourself, others respect you more. They see you as serious, determined, and strong. I learned that people are more eager to support those who support themselves, because they trust that their help will be valued and used wisely. Importantly, this law doesn't mean rejecting all kindness or generosity. It means knowing when to accept help and when to stand on your own. It means recognizing that true partnerships are built on mutual effort, not one-sided giving. I found that when I accepted support with gratitude but without dependence, I built relationships that were balanced and healthy. In the end, despising the free lunch is about owning your power. It is about choosing to work, to build, and to grow on your own terms. When you master this law, you gain a kind of freedom that no favor can buy, a freedom built on self-respect, effort, and the knowledge that your success is truly your own. Chapter 41. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. It can seem like a smart move to follow in the footsteps of someone who is highly successful. After all, their path is proven, their name is respected, and their achievements have already set the stage. But the law, avoid stepping into a great man's shoes, teaches that taking over where a powerful figure left off can be more of a burden than a blessing. When you step into their place, you are constantly compared to them, judged by their standards, and often overshadowed by their legacy. True power and respect come not from following too closely behind someone else, but from building your own name, your own vision, and your own path. I learned this lesson when I took on a role that had been held by someone deeply admired. At first, I felt honored and excited. But as I settled into the position, I realized how challenging it was. Every idea I offered, every decision I made, was weighed against what my predecessor would have done. People expected me to match their style, their strengths, and their way of doing things. I felt trapped by comparisons, unable to fully express my own approach. It taught me that stepping into the shoes of a great figure often means living in their shadow rather than standing in your own light. This law teaches that it's better to carve out your own identity. When you build something new, when you bring fresh energy and ideas, people come to respect you for who you are, not for how well you copy someone else. I found that by focusing on creating my own path, I gained trust and admiration that was genuine and lasting. People stopped comparing me to the past and started seeing the value I brought in the present. Avoiding stepping into a great man's shoes also means knowing when to say no. Not every opportunity that looks prestigious or powerful is the right fit. If it ties you too tightly to someone else's legacy, it can limit your freedom to lead and grow. I learned that true strength comes from choosing roles and challenges that let your own talents shine, even if they seem smaller at first. In time, your own achievements will speak louder than any borrowed greatness. This law is about understanding the weight of expectations. When you follow a legend, people often expect you to continue their success without change or mistake. But the truth is, times change, needs change, and what worked for one leader may not work for the next. By stepping into a new role on your own terms, you give yourself the space to lead with authenticity and to adapt as needed. Importantly, avoiding a great man's shoes doesn't mean rejecting inspiration or learning from those who came before. It means honoring their achievements while finding your own way forward. I found that by respecting the past but not being bound by it, I could build on what was good while also creating something new. In the end, this law teaches that true power comes from being yourself, from shaping your own path, and from creating a legacy that is yours alone. When you master this, you step not into someone else's shoes, but into your own, with confidence, clarity, and a future that belongs to you. Chapter 42. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. In any group, whether a team, a company, a community, or even a group of rivals, there is often a leader, a figure who holds the group together and guides its direction. This person may be official or informal, visible or hidden. The law, strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter, teaches that when you want to weaken or break up a group, the most effective way is to focus on the leader. When the shepherd is removed, challenged, or discredited, the group often loses its purpose, direction, and unity. By understanding this dynamic, you gain the power to shape outcomes without unnecessary conflict or struggle. I learned this lesson during a difficult negotiation where progress was blocked not by the group as a whole, but by one strong voice guiding the rest. Rather than arguing with everyone or trying to persuade the entire team, I focused on addressing that key figure's concerns and influence. Once I shifted that person's position, the group followed easily. Later, I saw this same principle in action when a toxic leader was removed from a team. Without their presence, the negativity faded, and the group began to heal and work together again. This law teaches the value of seeing the true source of power within a group. It is easy to be distracted by noise, by many voices, or by surface-level conflicts. But when you look deeper, you can often identify the one person whose views, decisions, or energy shape the rest. I found that by observing closely, by noticing who others look to before they speak, who sets the tone, who inspires loyalty or fear, I could identify the shepherd. And once I did, I could act with focus rather than wasting effort on less important battles. Striking the shepherd does not always mean removing them. It can mean winning them over, challenging their influence, or offering an alternative vision that draws people away naturally. I learned that in many cases, simply addressing the shepherd's power, whether through dialogue, strategy, or example, was enough to shift the group's direction without harm or conflict. This law also reminds us of the risk of ignoring key influencers. When we fail to see or address the real source of strength in a group, our efforts can fall flat. I saw projects fail because people focused on details or individuals who didn't truly matter, while the real decision maker went unchallenged or unengaged. By learning to spot and address the shepherd, I made wiser, more effective choices. Importantly, this law calls for care. Power used harshly creates resistance and damage. The goal is not destruction, but clarity and progress. I found that by focusing on understanding and guiding the shepherd's role, I could build outcomes that served everyone better, not just myself, but the group as a whole. In the end, striking the shepherd and the sheep will scatter is about seeing the heart of power in any situation. It is about acting with focus, wisdom, and purpose. When you master this law, you gain the ability to guide groups, resolve challenges, and build strength, not through force, but through insight and strategy that makes lasting change. Chapter 43. Work on the hearts and minds of others. True power is not built on force alone. While strength and skill can open doors, lasting influence comes from winning over people's hearts and minds. The law, work on the hearts and minds of others, teaches that if you want people to follow, support, and trust you, you must connect with both their emotions and their thoughts. You must understand what they care about, what inspires them, and what they fear. When you do this with respect and sincerity, you build bonds that go deeper than any deal, rule, or command. I learned this lesson during a period of leading a team through major change. At first, I focused on logic, on explaining the reasons for the shift, the benefits, the data behind the decision. But I noticed that while people nodded and seemed to understand, they didn't feel inspired. Some resisted quietly, others simply went through the motions. It was only when I took time to listen to their worries, to share a vision that spoke to their hopes, and to honor what they valued that things began to change. When I reached their hearts as well as their minds, we moved forward together. Working on the hearts and minds of others starts with empathy. People want to feel seen, heard, and valued. When you take the time to ask questions, to listen without judgment, and to show that you care about their experience, you gain trust. I found that even in difficult conversations, when I showed real interest in the other person's view, the tone softened, and we found common ground more easily. This law teaches that people are moved more by emotion than by facts alone. Logic speaks to the head, but stories, symbols, and shared experiences speak to the heart. When you combine the two, you create influence that lasts. I learned that by sharing stories of our shared goals, by creating moments that brought people together, and by honoring what mattered to them, I built support that stayed strong even in tough times. Another key part of this law is consistency. People trust those who act with integrity, who match their words with actions, and who stay true to their values over time. I found that when I worked not just to persuade, but to serve and respect others, I built relationships that endured. These relationships became the foundation of many successes, because people were willing to follow where I led, not out of obligation, but out of belief. Working on hearts and minds is also about creating hope. In times of uncertainty or challenge, people look for light, for a reason to keep going. When you provide that light, through vision, through care, through example, you gain a kind of power that no title or authority alone can offer. I saw that when I helped people see the possibility of a better future, they gave their best, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. In the end, this law teaches that power built on connection, care, and respect is the strongest kind of power. It is the kind that lasts through change, that weathers challenge, and that leaves a positive mark. When you master this law, you lead not just with your head, but with your heart, and in doing so, you bring out the best in those around you. Chapter 44. Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect. There is a powerful tool in the world of influence that requires no force, no argument, and no grand gesture. It is called the mirror effect, the act of reflecting back to others their own behavior, attitude, or words. The law, disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect, teaches that by doing this, you can neutralize aggression, expose hypocrisy, or unsettle those who try to control you. When people see themselves reflected, they are often caught off guard. They may feel confused, frustrated, or humbled. The mirror holds up a truth they may not want to face, and in that moment, you gain power without lifting a finger. I first saw this law at work during a disagreement with someone who was quick to criticize but slow to listen. Rather than defending myself or pushing back with my own argument, I calmly repeated their points, asked questions in their tone, and mirrored their posture. The effect was immediate. They grew uncomfortable, began to soften their stance, and soon the conversation shifted from confrontation to dialogue. By holding up a mirror, I helped them see the impact of their approach, without directly challenging or attacking them. The mirror effect works because people are often unaware of how they appear to others. We all have blind spots, ways of acting or speaking that we don't see clearly. When you reflect these behaviors back, gently and thoughtfully, you create a moment of self-awareness. I found that in tense meetings or negotiations, mirroring helped lower the temperature and open space for better understanding. This law teaches that the mirror can disarm because it removes the energy of conflict. When you respond with calm reflection rather than direct opposition, you take the force out of an attack. The other person expects resistance, and instead meets themselves. This unexpected response unsettles and often leads to a pause, a chance to reset the interaction. I saw that by using the mirror effect, I avoided many unnecessary arguments and guided conversations toward more productive outcomes. At the same time, the mirror effect can infuriate, especially when someone is behaving unfairly or aggressively. Seeing their own behavior reflected can feel like an accusation, even when it is presented calmly. This reaction can be useful when you want to reveal someone's true nature to others, or when you want to create a moment of reckoning. I learned that this tool must be used with care. Its strength lies in subtlety, not in provoking anger for its own sake. Importantly, the mirror effect is not about mockery or ridicule. It is about creating clarity. By reflecting back what is given to you, you invite others to see themselves as they are. You offer a chance for change without forcing it. I found that when I used this approach thoughtfully, I built respect rather than resentment, and influence rather than resistance. In the end, disarming and infuriating with the mirror effect is about holding up truth in a way that guides, teaches, and reveals. It is about using reflection, not confrontation, to shape outcomes. When you master this law, you gain a quiet strength, the power to lead without shouting, to influence without fighting, and to bring light where there was once only shadow. Chapter 45. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. Change is part of growth. It's how people, teams, and entire societies improve and move forward. But change can also be scary. It shakes up routines, challenges what people are comfortable with, and forces them to adjust in ways they may not be ready for. The law, preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once, teaches that while it's wise to guide others toward improvement, pushing too much too fast can backfire. People may resist, panic, or turn against the very changes that would help them. True power comes from leading change at a pace people can follow, balancing vision with patience. I learned this lesson when I took on a role that involved modernizing outdated processes in a company. Full of energy and ideas, I introduced several big changes at once, confident that people would see the benefits. But instead of enthusiasm, I met confusion, frustration, and resistance. It wasn't that the ideas were bad, they were just too much, too quickly. I had underestimated the emotional side of change. Over time, I adjusted. I slowed the pace, introduced improvements one at a time, and took care to explain the reasons and the benefits along the way. With this approach, I earned support and helped the team grow together. This law teaches that people need time to adjust. Even when change is positive, it can feel like a loss at first, the loss of the familiar, of comfort, of habits that feel safe. When you introduce change gently, in stages, you give people the chance to see the benefits and build confidence as they go. I found that when I listened to concerns, celebrated small wins, and allowed space for questions, change became something people embraced rather than feared. Preaching the need for change is important because it helps people see the purpose behind what's coming. When you share a vision that speaks to their hopes and values, you inspire them to join you on the journey. But coupling that vision with a steady, manageable pace keeps people engaged. I learned that bold ideas need thoughtful delivery. A leader who can balance passion for change with respect for people's process earns trust and achieves lasting results. This law also reminds us that change is not just about plans and systems, it's about hearts and minds. People don't resist change because they are lazy or foolish. They resist because change touches identity, security, and emotion. When you honor these realities, you build stronger connections and smoother paths. I found that by focusing on dialogue, by inviting people into the process rather than forcing it on them, I created partnerships that made change easier for everyone. Importantly, preaching the need for change without pushing too hard shows strength, not weakness. It shows that you see the big picture, that you can guide without rushing, and that you are committed not just to ideas, but to people. This kind of leadership builds a legacy that lasts because it creates change that sticks. In the end, preaching the need for change but never reforming too much at once is about leading with vision, wisdom, and care. It's about helping others grow at a pace that builds confidence rather than fear. When you master this law, you become the kind of leader people want to follow, one who brings progress, not chaos, and who builds the future step by step. Chapter 46. Never appear too perfect. People admire excellence. They look up to those who seem talented, successful, and confident. But there's a delicate balance between earning respect and sparking resentment. The law, never appear too perfect, teaches that when you seem flawless, you can unintentionally make others feel small or insecure. This can lead to jealousy, quiet opposition, or even efforts to tear you down. To hold power and maintain lasting success, it's wise to let your strengths show, but also to reveal just enough vulnerability, humility, or humanity to put others at ease and build connection rather than envy. I learned this lesson during a time when I had achieved a string of successes. I worked hard, stayed focused, and delivered strong results. But instead of being celebrated, I began to sense tension from some colleagues. They questioned my motives, doubted my ideas more quickly, or distanced themselves. At first, I was puzzled. But over time, I saw that the image of always getting things right had made some feel threatened or overlooked. When I made an effort to share not just wins, but struggles, to ask for advice, to show appreciation, to admit challenges, I noticed a change. People became more supportive, more willing to collaborate, and more comfortable around me. This law teaches that people want to relate to those they admire. When you show only perfection, you create distance. But when you reveal that you, too, face difficulties or learn along the way, you build trust. I found that by sharing moments of growth, by laughing at my own mistakes, and by showing gratitude for help I received, I created stronger bonds. People respected me not less, but more, because they saw me as both capable and approachable. Never appearing too perfect is also about managing perception wisely. People are more forgiving of those who seem human. When you let small imperfections show, you protect yourself from harsher judgment if bigger challenges arise. I discovered that those who always project flawless images often face sharper criticism when things go wrong, because others are waiting for proof that they aren't as perfect as they seem. This law doesn't mean faking flaws or playing small. It means being genuine. It means knowing that true strength includes honesty about your journey, and that sharing this journey invites others in. I learned that people are drawn to leaders who inspire not by standing above, but by walking alongside, showing what's possible while acknowledging what's hard. Importantly, this law also reminds us to celebrate the contributions of others. When you shine a light on your team, your partners, or those who helped you along the way, you deflect envy and build goodwill. I found that when I lifted others up, I created an environment where success felt shared, not competitive. In the end, never appearing too perfect is about leading with grace and humility. It's about showing that greatness is not about being flawless, but about striving, learning, and growing in ways that bring others along with you. When you master this law, you build a kind of power that is both strong and kind, a power that lasts because it is rooted in real connection. Chapter 47. Do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop. Success is exciting. When we reach a goal, win a competition, or gain a victory, the energy of that moment can push us to want more. It feels as if nothing can stop us, as if the next win is within easy reach. But the law, do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop, teaches that knowing when to pause is just as important as knowing how to win. When you push beyond what is wise, when you chase more after you've already succeeded, you risk losing what you gained, creating unnecessary enemies, or inviting your own downfall. True power lies in recognizing the right moment to stop, consolidate your gains, and protect your success. I learned this lesson during a project where I led a team to a big win. We exceeded expectations, and energy was high. Driven by excitement, I proposed adding new features and goals that hadn't been part of the original plan. But instead of building on our success, these extra steps stretched our resources, strained relationships, and eventually slowed our progress. What could have ended as a clean, celebrated victory became a struggle. From that experience, I saw that the wisest move would have been to stop at the moment of success, to savor the win and prepare for the next challenge, rather than pushing too far. This law teaches that victory can cloud judgment. When things go well, it's easy to believe that the same approach, energy, or ambition will carry you even further. But every situation has limits of timing, of goodwill, of what people will accept. When you go beyond these limits, you risk turning allies into rivals, fans into critics, and strength into overreach. I found that by reflecting after a win, by asking, "What is the smart next step?" rather than simply chasing the next thrill, I made better choices. Learning when to stop also protects your reputation. People admire confidence, but they value wisdom even more. A leader who knows how to win without gloating, who celebrates without overreaching, builds respect. I saw that when I paused at the right time, I left others wanting more rather than wishing I would step back. This created goodwill and left the door open for future success. This law also reminds us that not every opportunity is worth chasing. When you've met your goal, the temptation to grab for more can be strong, but not all gains serve your long-term purpose. I learned that the strongest victories are those that align with your vision and values, and that knowing when to stop is part of what makes a win truly complete. Importantly, stopping at the right time doesn't mean losing ambition. It means being strategic. It means understanding that the journey is made of many steps, and that each win is a foundation for the next move, not a reason to rush blindly forward. I found that by focusing on long-term goals rather than short-term excitement, I achieved more and built success that lasted. In the end, not going past the mark you aimed for is about mastering yourself. It is about leading not just with energy, but with wisdom, balance, and care. When you master this law, you gain a kind of power that endures, a power that grows because it is guided by both passion and purpose. Chapter 48. Assume formalias in life, in business, and in the pursuit of power, many people seek stability. They create fixed plans, define clear roles, and hold tightly to routines that once brought success. But the world is always changing. Circumstances shift, rivals emerge, and what worked yesterday may fail tomorrow. The law, assume formlessness, teaches that real strength lies not in clinging to a single shape, plan, or identity, but in staying flexible. Like water, you flow around obstacles, adapt to what comes, and never become so rigid that you can be broken. When you master formlessness, you stay ahead of change, and you turn change into opportunity. I learned this lesson during a period of great transition. A strategy that had served me well for years suddenly stopped working. At first, I tried harder to make it fit, to force the old plan onto the new reality. But the more I pushed, the more resistance I met. Only when I stepped back and let go of the fixed approach did I begin to see new paths forward. By adapting my thinking and actions, I found success not by holding firm, but by flowing with the change. Assuming formlessness means staying open to what each situation requires. Instead of always using the same solution, you look with fresh eyes. You ask, what does this moment need? How can I adjust to serve my purpose? I found that by approaching challenges with curiosity rather than rigid certainty, I discovered creative answers that others missed. This law teaches that rigidity is dangerous because it makes you predictable. When people can easily read your moves or expect your reactions, they can outmaneuver you. But when you stay flexible, you keep others guessing. You protect your freedom, because no one can box you in or trap you with expectations. I saw that by being willing to change course, I stayed in control, even when everything around me shifted. Assuming formlessness also helps you handle setbacks. When plans fall apart or conditions change, those who cling to the old way struggle most. But those who are willing to let go, to rethink, and to reshape their path move forward with less damage and more speed. I learned that every setback held seeds of a new strategy, if I stayed flexible enough to see them. Importantly, this law reminds us that flexibility does not mean weakness. It takes strength to let go of what no longer serves you, and courage to try new ways. Assuming formlessness means knowing your purpose clearly, but being willing to change how you achieve it. I found that the most powerful leaders and thinkers were those who stayed true to their vision but let their methods evolve. In the end, assuming formlessness is about choosing resilience over rigidity, curiosity over control, and growth over comfort. It is about understanding that in a world that never stops changing, the greatest power belongs to those who can change with it. When you master this law, you gain a kind of strength that endures, a strength that bends but does not break, that adapts but does not lose itself, and that finds opportunity in every new shape the world takes.